Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. The City Council is reconvening from closed session. There's nothing to report. And let's adjourn the closed session at 6:01 p.m. At this time, I want to call the regular City Council meeting to order on Wednesday, October the 21st at 6:01 p.m. Mr. Clerk, if you read the Metro replay list.
Thank you, Mayor. This meeting of the Elk Grove City Council will be replayed on Metro Cable Channel 14 on Friday, October 25th at 1 p.m. and Saturday, October 27th at 6 p.m. It is being closed captioned. Will be webcast at sacmetrocable.tv. City Council meeting videos are also archived on the city's website at elkgrovecity.org. For members of the audience who may have personal electronic devices, please place them on silent mode during the meeting. Elk Grove City Council welcomes, appreciates, and encourages participation in the City Council meeting. City Council requests that you limit your presentation to 3 minutes per person so that all present will have time to participate. City Council reserves the right to reasonably limit the total time for public comment on any particular noticed agenda item as it may deem necessary. Pursuant to Resolution Number 2010-24, no individual speaker concerning public comment may address the Council for more than 3 minutes. Speaker timer on the podium counts down the individual speaker time remaining and will turn yellow after the first 2 minutes have passed, indicating 1 minute remains to summarize comments. If you wish to address the Council during the meeting, please complete a speaker card, the blue cards that can be found at the back of the room, and provide it to the Deputy City Clerk prior to consideration of the agenda item. Thank you, Mayor.
Roll call, please.
For the roll call, Councilmember Wynn is absent. Councilmember Detrick.
Here.
Councilmember Suen. Here. Vice Mayor Hume.
Here.
And Mayor Lee.
I am here. And next item is Pledge of Allegiance. I see the chair of the Diversity and Inclusion Commission here, Mr. Mohinder Singh. Can you lead us in the pledge?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. And at the beginning of every regular City Council meeting, the City Council would like to invite the public to join us in a moment of silence. So if you can join me and the rest of the Council. Thank you very much. And next item.
I guess Section 2, approval of the agenda.
Okay, do I have a motion?
So moved. Second.
Got a motion, second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Oppose? Abstention? Next item.
We have no closed session items under Section 3, which will take us to Section 4, our presentations and announcements, starting with item 4.1, which is a recognition of the City of Elk Grove Disability Advisory Committee's 13th Annual Above and Beyond Program Accessibility Award. And invite those members to come on forward.
Mr. Mayor, Mr. Vice Mayor, members, thank you for inviting us here tonight. This is one of our favorite days of the year where we get to give the Above and Beyond Award for people who have gone above and beyond normal life, really, to help people, disabled people in Elk Grove. So I did want to introduce Ann Hennessy, who's on the Disability Advisory Committee with me tonight. Ted Clark, the chairman, and Karen Gerstenmeyer, the vice chair, are not able to be here. And Bruce Cager is out of town as well. So the purpose, as I said, is to recognize individuals, organizations, and businesses that have gone above and beyond for individuals with disabilities in our community. And it's important, we think, to highlight the award because it recognizes Elk Grove's diverse community. We thank all those who are nominated for this award. We'll be giving one award tonight. The recipient of this year's award is Brian Boggs, owner of Amped Fitness. Brian was nominated by Vanessa Beaker with the Fly Brave Foundation. Amped Fitness is a local gym in Elk Grove, owned and operated by Brian and Ronnie Boggs. Brian is a personal trainer, as you can tell, and volunteers as the lead trainer for Fly Fit, a fitness program between the Elk Grove Police Department and the Fly Brave Foundation. Twice each week, he transports all the equipment needed for the program and leads the participants in their workout. Brian writes and adjusts workouts specifically for those with specialized needs and purchases and provides equipment for the use of those with developmental needs participating in his workouts. Brian recently earned his certification as an autism fitness certified professional and volunteers his time annually to assist special needs families in Elk Grove. We want to thank Brian for his efforts and show him our gratitude by presenting him with this plaque. Thank you, Brian.
Council members, do you want to join on this?
Sure.
Ready? 1, 2, 3. One more for good measure. Thank you.
Thank you.
Did you get it, Abby? Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next item.
Take us on to item 4.2, which is a proclamation declaring October 20th through the 26th, 2019 as Friends of the Library Week. We can ask representatives from Friends of the Library and our Sacramento Public Library Authority to step up to the podium to meet Councilmember Suen.
Well, as the current chair of the Sacramento Public Library Authority, it's my honor to present this proclamation to our Friends of the Library during Friends of the Library Week. You know, libraries are the cornerstone of our country. It's a place of knowledge. Even, you know, since back in the day when I still remember card catalogs and all those things, and how today we've gone much more into the digital age, but still a fabric of our community. And, you know, there's, for most of us, there's no greater asset than our time, right? And so the fact that you guys have provided more than 56,000 hours of volunteer service and gave local libraries more than $300,000 to fund programs, purchase new equipment, and bring the community together. You've raised more than $56,000 to support the library's Book First program, providing children with books for their home and libraries, and provided more than 2,200 boxes of books to more than 120 locations, allowing people without access to libraries to have access to books. So we're very grateful for your service. You guys have been a great partner to the library, and I want to, you know, take this time or moment to now therefore be it resolved that the City Council of the City of Elk Grove hereby proclaims October 20th through the 26th, 2019, as Friends of the Library Week at the City of Elk Grove, and urges residents to thank the hundreds of friends of the library who support and enhance our libraries. Thank you so much for your work.
You guys want to gather around? Let's go.
Can we swing a few of you over to this side?
Yeah,
so we
come
can
this
show
way.
them the
Yeah.
picture?
We have Rivka here, Rivka Sass, our executive officer of the Library Authority.
Jared Keller, Kathy Middleton. She's got the.
And let's see
I
guys
know, I
like
can see all the
this.
cameras.
I know.
More.
And we have-
All right. Okay, 1, 2, 3. One more for good measure. All right.
Thank you. Thank you very much. You guys want to say something? Can I say something, Jeff?
Real quickly.
Yes. Please.
Or you want?
Either way. Good evening, council members, mayor, and Elk Grove residents. My name is Jeff Rubin. I'm currently the president of the Elk Grove Friends of the Library. It's a great honor to receive this proclamation from the city council. The Friends of the Library, whether it's our branch here in Elk Grove or the 27 other branches around the county, we exist to promote the library's programs and services and to advocate for the enhanced library programs that we know we can reach here throughout Sacramento County. We're very glad to have fantastic library staff here in Elk Grove with our two library branch supervisors here tonight, as well as the Central Library Administration, who've been such great partners and friends for the Friends of the Library. This coming year, as we did last year, our focus again will be trying to enhance the Book First program, which raises money for first graders in schools with low economic situations. And we've been able to provide, 17,000 books? Is that the number, somewhere around there? Across the county. We hope to increase that number this year. Again, most of that money comes from the Big Day of Giving, when the Friends do a region-wide fundraising effort as part of that larger nonprofit effort throughout the Sacramento region. So again, we appreciate the City Council's interest and support of the library, and thank you for honoring us as the Friends of the Library. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. All right, next item.
Takes us on to item 4.3, which is a proclamation declaring October 2019 as American Pharmacist Month. And I believe we have some students in the audience, if they can meet our respective council member up at the speaker podium. Thank you.
We have a proclamation here prepared by the city and presented on behalf of the City Council, recognizing October 2019 as Pharmacist Month. Know your medicine, know your pharmacist. Whereas a pharmacy is one of the oldest of the health profession, concerned with health and well-being of all people, whereas pharmacists are specifically educated with a focus and level of expertise on medication therapy and are ideally suited to work collaboratively with other healthcare providers and patients to improve medication use and outcomes by providing services through medication therapy management. And whereas it is important to promote the profession of pharmacy as an essential healthcare provider, and whereas pharmacists provide both expertise and accessibility, which are crucial to patients fully optimizing access to medications that are not self-administered, such as, but not limited to, immunization, and whereas American Pharmacists Association and the California Pharmacists Association have proclaimed October as American Pharmacist Month with the theme, Know Your Medicine, Know Your Pharmacist. Now therefore be it resolved that the City Council of the City of Elk Grove hereby proclaims October 2019 as American Pharmacist Month in the City of Elk Grove and urges all of its citizens to acknowledge the valuable services provided by pharmacists in our community. Signed on this 23rd date of October. Thank you for being here, and let's present, and then you could provide some comments about that. All right. Okay.
So you guys go to the other side here? Sure. All right, first one's the city phone. Okay, 1, 2, 3. One more phone. Ready? 1, 2, 3. One more for good measure. Okay.
Thank you. Awesome. If you could make some remarks, please. Thank you, gentlemen.
So thank you for the City of Oak Grove for this opportunity in acknowledging October as Pharmacist Month. As a current student and a future pharmacist, this truly means a lot. To be recognized throughout the city and the state as healthcare providers is a huge step in the right direction. As medications experts, we are able to provide counseling and to ensure our patients are getting the most benefit from their therapies. Aside from the community/retail pharmacist, you can find our profession in almost every part of the healthcare field. We assist in formulating new drugs in the pharmaceutical companies, help set up insurances, and which drugs are approved for certain disease states, care for patients in the hospital setting, and even advocate for our profession to external organizations. But I want to leave you with this. Pharmacists are the most accessible healthcare providers in the nation. On the way to a physician's office, you pass at least 4 to 5 pharmacies, meaning we are 4 to 5 times more accessible than a normal physician. We go through rigorous education to obtain our doctorate degrees and enter this profession with the want to help those around us. So the next time you see your local pharmacist, appreciate them, compliment them, and let them know that what they are doing is meaningful. Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. All right, next item.
Next is item 4.4, which is a presentation by the Diversity and Inclusion Commission for their annual update.
Good evening, Council, and to all the attendees here tonight. As part of our annual update for the what started off as a multicultural committee, we want to go over what we achieved over the last year. So the big changes this year on July the 10th, the Multicultural Committee became a commission, Diversity and Inclusion Commission. And with that, some of our responsibilities has been changed, and we worked over the past several months to kind of go over that. One of the main things that we want to focus on is education and promotion to better serve the community. We want to be the ambassadors for the community and continue to provide a feedback to the council and make any changes necessary as we need to. And the event following one of the main events that we've been putting up is the Multicultural Festival, which happens in August. And over the last couple of years, we've been really focusing on how to be more involved in that month. So we decided to dedicate the entire month of August to celebrating diversity. And this year, there were a number of events which a lot of community members, including a lot of council members, attended. Included things like kite making workshops, interfaith prayers, meditation, programs for the youth, crafts from around the world, and walks, and obviously the 8th annual festival, which happened in August. So the next couple of slides are just kind of highlights from the festival itself. So this year, we had over 25 different cultures and music performances. The art show itself has grown kind of into its own world. It's kind of taken over. So it has become a really popular. We had over 130 entries this year. And also the funds that are being raised through that are being used for scholarships. You can see some pictures of the displays and the exhibits from the festival. So we had over 100 booths that were dedicated to promoting diversity. We had a diversity pledge booth, and the kids' favorite, the zoo, the petting zoo, along with some face painting. So as part of getting feedback from the community, we've been doing surveys for the event, throughout the event. So the results for survey are up on the slide from this year. So the overall rating has been great. And some of the questions you can see on the right-hand side. So 60% were the attendees were female, 56% were the visitors for first time, and 60% were from Sacramento surrounding areas. And one of the main things that the community indicated they came for was for the entertainment and the cultural exhibits. So we're trying to use this results from the surveys to see what changes we need to make and to serve the community better and see what else the community is looking from this event. And obviously, the sponsors has been a huge help. It's a big budget that goes with this event, and over the years, the sponsors have really stepped up to the point that the event is being sponsored entirely by the sponsors. So we had over 37,000 from the business sponsorship, and then about 4,400 over the vendors that signed up to be part of the event. And also, as part of, besides from the festival itself, we're trying to focus on what else we could do to be more involved in the community and what other events that we could do. And just yesterday, Festival of Lights was celebrated. This event is celebrated among different cultures and religious groups. So it was open to the public. So it was, it's one of those things where we're trying to bring the communities together to celebrate the cultures and share their cultures with the community of Elk Grove itself. And these are some of the future upcoming events. December 7th, the Illumination Holiday Festival, which we as a part of the Diversity and Inclusion Commission, we want to be part of and see how else we could make that better and get other communities involved. And then another event in January is end of January is the New Year, the Lunar Year event. This is also celebrated among many Asian cultures, so it's going to be open to the public. Moving forward, for the commission itself, for the Diversity and Inclusion Commission, we want to focus on what other training as a commission we need to better serve the community. Through the American Leadership Forum, we want to see, we have a diversity pledge in place. We want to see if there's any changes we need to make to the pledge itself. And we also want to, in order to better serve the community, as the new commissioners are coming or the old ones are going, we want to make sure that they represent the face of the community. So we want to provide an input on that, and then also pursue other outreach opportunities within the community and continue to celebrate our cultural celebrations. So this is time when you guys could ask questions or comments, and I do want to welcome Scott and Mr. Hess as part of the commission as well. Thank you.
Any questions? Go ahead, Councilman.
Mayor, not a question, but I just wanted to commend you guys on all your work this year. We know we asked you to do a little bit more, and you guys are up to the task. And thank you for agreeing to do that and stepping up to engage the community in what we believe. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for everything that you're doing. And I apologize. I wish I could have been there last night, but I had another engagement. The only comment that I heard with respect to the Multicultural Festival that was negative, that may be an opportunity for improvement, is attendee that wished that more of the vendors were offering cultural items rather than just run-of-the-mill, regular stuff that you'd find at any old festival. They went there hoping to find something unique that they couldn't find at another festival. So I don't know how you would even parse down to try and attract those types of vendors, but if you could, I think that brings you up to another level.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Councilman Detrick.
Yeah, it's interesting to watch over the last 8 years how this has evolved from concept to all the different categories that you've added on. As originally was tasked just to put together the multicultural event, and then you've cascaded that and then looking at other ways to educate our community, now being diversity and inclusion. And I really commend you. And I was there last night for the Festival of Lights. And Mohinder, I think one of the things that you said, as well as many of the others The whole principle of the Festival of Light is to shine the light against the darkness of the world. And I think that, is very profound, and I think we can all visualize that and need to learn how to incorporate that in our lives as well. So thank you for what you've done, as well as the entire commission and all the volunteers and people that came out and danced in those events, and it's just phenomenal. I really, really appreciate everything you guys are doing, and keep up the great work.
Thank you.
I want to add to that. I want to commend the leadership of the what used to be the Multicultural Committee stepping up to be changed and to accept more responsibility along the lines of what Councilman Darren Soon had mentioned. It wasn't too long ago that we were there, and I think having an opportunity to try to have an exchange with the members and having the members step up and be willing to do a little bit more is greatly appreciated. And I think that we're on the right track. As council members Soon and I had mentioned about pop-ups, and I'm beginning to see that. And it really is refreshing, to see some of these things out in the community, and to see the commissioners to take the lead on it is the right thing to do. And I would encourage all of you to continue to do that. And please send the message back to the commissioners that we as a city council is very grateful for your willingness to step it up and do a little bit more. The only thing that I'd like to inquire on is, I know that there's a couple of sister city applications I want to know what the status is on that.
So the last one that the commission was reviewing, the applicant actually asked us to put it on hold until they get back to us due to some political reasons. So that's the only one that I'm aware of.
Okay.
Mayor, may I make a statement on that? There was another application that came into the city, but we did a first level staff review and decided that it needed more information.
Okay.
So I believe we sent that back to the applicant in July, and we have not heard back from that applicant. So that has not been advanced to the D&I Commission at this point.
Okay, because they're sending me emails questioning it, and I'm not quite sure as to where it is. I don't know whether there's something lost in the communication back, but if we can make an effort to make sure that they are aware that this is the current status.
Yeah, if you can just provide me who you're corresponding with,
Okay.
I will make sure that that's the applicant, and then we'll circle back with them.
All right. But excellent job. Thank you so much.
I do have a last comment that obviously none of this is possible without the support of the council. So we do seek your continuous support moving forward and feedback as we're doing and trying new things. And do want to acknowledge the staff that we have. It's a great staff. Without them, we'd be lost. So they're keeping us on the track. And I do want to mention one more event. It's an upcoming event that the commission is working on. So as part of a Sikh, so we're having a celebration of Guru Nanak, the founder of the Sikh religion, in November the 10th, is when we want to invite the community, the council, and the interfaith leaders to just talk about have a dialogue about universal love and peace. So we'll reach out to you, to the council, once that information is finalized.
Okay, just make sure you send it to Carolyn. She'll schedule all of our calendars so that we can be there.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
One more thing. Mahendra, I just had a thought. I was wondering, our youth commission's been pretty active as well, and they've done a good job trying to engage youth on subjects like bullying. And I thought maybe this might be a good opportunity to have, some adults in the room, and maybe your commission could work with their commission to doing something in the community that deals with bullying, suicide, mental health, those kinds of things.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Good suggestion. Yeah, very good.
Thank you.
Thank you for that.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next item.
Takes us to item 4.5, which is the new hire introductions.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. This is our quarterly new hire. Get the new employees in front, introduce them to you, and also those that have been promoted in the last quarter. So we've been busy, a lot of new hires as well as promotions. We'll go ahead and start with our police department. Captain Albright, come on up and introduce your staff. Chief, that too.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, council members. Tim Albright, your police chief. Excited to introduce 3 of our brand new employees and 2 of our recent promotions. So if you will allow me to introduce them briefly. At the end, or I'm sorry, in the middle, is Liz Blomberg. She was hired as a veterinary assistant with our new animal services and within the animal shelter. Prior to working for Elk Grove, she worked for the Sacramento Zoo as well as Front Street Animal Shelter. So she brings a great deal of experience, and we are very lucky to have her. To her left, Fernando Vera. Fernando was hired as a dispatcher within our communication center right beyond these walls on August 4th of this year. Fernando is an Elk Grove resident and graduated from Laguna Creek High School, so we were happy to be able to keep one of our graduates here working in Elk Grove and for our organization. He's proud to live in and work in the city that he was raised in, so we're happy to have him. To my left is Rick Tran. Rick was hired as a lateral police officer and brings a great deal of experience. Rick used to work for the California Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation, the San Jose Police Department, and then for the last 6 years, the Hayward Police Department. So we are thrilled to have his experience here at the police department. He is doing an excellent job, and we're proud to have him here. Moving on to our promotions, Michelle Ward is being promoted to Animal Services Supervisor. She was unable to attend today, but she's been with the city for about 11 years, has worked within Animal Services, Transit, and now having been promoted to the supervisor position of the animal control or field staff. To my left is Tamara Lopez. She was promoted to Senior Administrative Analyst within the Office of the Chief on September 15th. Tamara's been here with the city for about 9 years, spent a couple of years in finance, and then came over to the police department. She served as an administrative analyst within the Office of the Chief for a little short of 4 years, and now has promoted to the Senior Management Analyst, Senior Administrative Analyst within the Office of the Chief. So we're excited to move her up in the ranks and to take on more responsibility with that promotion. And last but certainly not least, to Tamara's right is Gabrielle Flynn. You may recognize Gabrielle as being our volunteer quarter for the police department in the city for the past 5 years. Gabrielle really took our volunteer program to new heights, certainly investing in the people that make that what it is, that special group of people who serve this community and this organization. She was instrumental in bringing forward the ambassador program that has demonstrated a great deal of success in our community, and we're excited to have her as an administrative analyst within the Office of the Chief. So those are our 3 new hires and our 3 promotions, and I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Awesome.
Congratulations.
Congratulations, welcome.
Next we have the City Manager's Office, Kara Reddick.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the City Council. I'm Kara Reddick, Deputy City Manager. I'm here to introduce 3 of our 4 new community center attendants for District 56. John, right here, joins the city with 15 years consulting as a total health and wellness trainer, speaker, and advocate, as well as 25 years of resort marketing and management. John's career in the hospitality industry included a few years working on 2 committees for the 2002 Salt Lake City Winter Olympic Games, which we think is pretty cool. And then John moved to Elk Grove in 2012 from the Bay Area with the intent to eventually retire. But he just started last week, so. Okay, so I have Michael here to my right. Michael Dorone is a Sacramento State graduate, magna cum laude, with a Bachelor of Science in Recreation Administration with an emphasis in recreation and park management. He has found a passion of wanting to work with local agencies and their communities. He has a 5-year-old daughter, and he's really excited about this opportunity. And Richard Agresa is to my left as well. Richard was born in Stockton. Richard has 30 years of experience in the hospitality industry and currently also works at Sac State. He's married, he has 1 son. This is the first time Richard's had the opportunity to be involved in the opening of a new facility, and he's excited for the challenge. So we have 1 member who couldn't be here tonight. It's Shanitha Saavedra. And Shanitha recently moved to Elk Grove from San Jose. She has a passion for fashion design and event planning. She's a proud mother and proud wife and mother of 3 boys, and she's excited to be a part of the District 56 team. So please welcome this team.
Yeah. Welcome.
Welcome.
Next, we have our Public Works Department, Director Bob Murdock.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, council members. Bob Murdock, Public Works Director. I have actually 3 new employees and 1 promotion. So I'll start from my left and your right with Cindy Mock. And before I start this, I want to say all of these positions are part of the transition of O&M from Wildan-led oversight to city oversight. So everybody here works in the O&M division of Public Works. And so a good example is Cindy Mock. She actually worked for Wildan for the past 5 years as a customer service specialist, and we were very happy to hire her in that same capacity. So she brings 5 years of experience. When you call out to the yard, if a citizen has a question or a service request, Cindy's the one that answers the phone, and she's the one that helps translate that into work order and gets the crew out into the field, so among other things. So Cindy Mock, I'm very happy that she's here. There's no training involved, so I like that a lot. Next to her is Joshua Drake. Joshua comes to us from the city of Stockton. He was there for 12 years. We hired him as a streets maintenance supervisor on September 16th. He has a tremendous amount of experience in pavement and when dealing with contractor. He's actually going to be the one that's in the field, dealing with the contractor, overseeing their work, making sure that it's done correctly, responding to citizen requests, going out, seeing what they're asking for, and translating that into actually work in the field. So I want to invite Josh, and I'm very happy to have him here. He has a tremendous amount of experience. Next to me here is Robert French. He's the operations supervisor in O&M. He started on September 16th. He actually occupied that position for 2 years with Wildan. The past 2 years before that, he spent 9 years with the city of Dana Point as their street and fleets manager. He's actually one that develops the 5-year resurfacing program, along with the crack sealing project and everything else, develops those projects. He's the one in the office that puts all of that together. He's done a tremendous job so far, saved us probably millions of dollars in the last 2 years. And last but not least is Tiffany Agresa. She's actually been a city employee for 6 years. The last 4 years, she's been a senior admin assistant out at O&M, and we were thrilled to be able to promote her to administrative analyst so she can continue her job. She was promoted on July 8th. She's done a great job in helping to organize this. She's going to oversee the customer service. She's going to help develop the new work order system and really help. She's done a tremendous job in helping us improve our efficiencies, and we'll be able to track our costs. So with that, I'd just like to thank them, and thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Welcome.
Next, we have our Finance Department, Brad Kane.
Good evening, Council. I'm Brad Kane, your Director of Finance and Administrative Services. And in both sides of me here, I have representatives from our GIS and IT department. So we have Victor Soto, who, also, they've each given me a little fun fact that I'm going to share with you too. So Victor is our new GIS analyst, just started with the city at the beginning of October, and his fun fact is not only is he a California native, lives in Sacramento, he enjoys backpacking in the Sierras with his dog Topo. GIS Topo. And then over here on my right, which I'm very excited when we have employees that are dedicated, hardworking, know their stuff, and are able to be promoted. And so I'm thrilled that we've got 2 of those examples right here. So Ross Britton is been with the city for about 4 years, and what he likes to do is work on his Monte Carlo 1970 Monte Carlo. And then Lone Braswell has, did I say what you were promoted to? So Ross has been promoted to a senior IT analyst, and then Lone Braswell's been promoted to senior GIS analyst. And Lone has been with the city now 3 years, and she lives in Sacramento and loves to bake and travel. So we're glad to have her with the city. So if you would join me in congratulating our promotions and welcoming Victor.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you.
And finally, our Development Services Director, Garen Wilson.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of the council. I'm proud to introduce our newest code enforcement officer, Carlene Kirkpatrick. She was hired August 5th. She has a Bachelor of Science in Criminal Justice and Criminology from the Metropolitan State of University of Denver. Go Roadrunners, right? Did I get that right? Her previous experience is a code enforcement in Colorado. She was a juvenile correctional officer for the Sac County probation. She also volunteered as a victim advocate in Thornton, Colorado PD. So when Carlene's a resident of Elk Grove, and she has a 16-year-old daughter who attends Elk Grove High, has a 6-year-old son, 2 dogs, and 1 cat. So when she's not doing code enforcement and spending time with her family, she enjoys reading, day hikes, horses, mountains, and helping others, which is the most important thing in code enforcement. So please welcome Carlene to the Elk Grove family.
Yeah, welcome.
Congratulations. Got a question for you, Carlene. Carlene, were you in the hall?
Yeah.
I must have missed you then.
No, I think I've seen you there.
Really?
You probably don't remember me.
Welcome.
There's a lot of us over there.
Thank you.
Thank you. That's it.
That's it? All right. Let's move to the next item.
Take us to section 5, public comment. Members of the audience may comment on any item not on the agenda that is of interest to the public and within the subject matter jurisdiction of the City Council. Each person will be allowed 3 minutes or less if a large number of requests are received on a particular subject. City Council cannot take action on non-agendized items raised under public comment until the matter has been specifically included on an agenda as an action item. Members of the public desiring a response to a specific question are encouraged to contact any member of the council or the city manager at any time. Those audience members who wish to address a specific agendized item are encouraged to offer their public comments during the consideration of that item.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. And before I call the first speaker, certainly want to give the public a heads up. You have 3 minutes. At 2 minutes, the light on the timer will change. That will provide you 1 minute to sum it up. Not to be rude, I'm trying to do a good job here and allow an opportunity for everyone to voice their concerns and share with the City Council. So at 3 minutes, I will ask you to have a seat. So please be brief, be to the point. And considering that, let's start out with our first speaker, David Brown. Following David Brown is Brian Erickson.
Good evening, and thank you for the opportunity to speak before the City Council. My wife Elizabeth and I own Dreaming Dog Brewery, a veteran-owned small business. I wanted to take this opportunity to update the City Council on our business activities and our future. From the beginning, our business plan included a commitment to the community and giving back in tangible ways. On June 30th, 2019, our business held our first annual Cars and Canines car show. The funds raised were to benefit the Elk Grove Police Canine Association, an organization that's near and dear to our hearts. We had scheduled the event for May 19th, but rain caused us to delay. During that delay, Officer Tara O'Sullivan lost her life, and the Canine Association asked that all funds be diverted to her memorial. The turnout for the event saw an overwhelming registration of 131 participants. Community giving for raffle prizes was phenomenal, and everyone attending beyond generous. October the 9th, the Elk Grove Police Canine Association and Dreaming Dog Brewery met with the O'Sullivan family to present a $10,000 check for the Officer Tara O'Sullivan Memorial Fund. It was a solemn meeting, but the family was grateful for the opportunity to meet all of us, including the canines who loved on the family too. I want to bring this to your attention and let you know that our ability to continue this type of activity is threatened by the ongoing California North State University Hospital proposal that is before the City of Elk Grove. CNU continues to campaign this body and the citizens of Elk Grove with misinformation and half-truths. And on July 24th of this year, CNU took out a full-page advertisement in the Elk Grove Citizen declaring that they will have the first hospital built in Elk Grove by 2022. And I'm here to declare this as fake news, to coin a favorite phrase of the day. After 5 to 7 years for permit approval, the City of Elk Grove and Oshpod may be ready to issue permits for demolition and construction of the proposed hospital. Construction of the proposed hospital will require another 5 to 7 years with Oshpod approval for each phase of this project. Taking the shortest estimate, CNU cannot have their hospital built and operating before 2029. And given that Dignity Health already has their project approved by the City of Elk Grove with Oshpod approval imminent, Dignity Health will likely be the first hospital operating Elk Grove within 5 to 7 years, around 2025. Dreaming Dog is being forced to relocate on the existing Stone Lake Landing property to another building. The space is adequate in size, but on most business days, there's no parking available for our customers. It's our belief that CNU is forcing this move upon us for 2 reasons. Alvin Chung has expressed that he's upset by our comments and exposure in the media, and CNU is hoping that our business will fail. On the second year, Dreaming Dog Brewery has been recognized by the Sacramento News and Review for Best Brewery in Elk Grove.
Thank you, sir. Your time has expired. Next speaker is Brian Erickson. Following Brian Erickson is Crystal Cornelison.
Brian Erickson, Big B Construction, and this is a response to a press release October 10th on the Aquatics litigation. The city stated, once noticed significant defects in the new concrete, we immediately informed the contractor of our dissatisfaction and required them to remove and replace the defective concrete. This statement is blatant lie. The city is trying to make themselves look good. The fact is, Big B Construction and management pointed out the design was bad even before we placed any of the commons concrete. Then we pointed out again after about 6%. In a field report, the design team wrote, "We expect some cracking and what we see is acceptable," then directed us to continue placing the same design. The city states experts investigating the concrete defects found a failure to both construction and design. This is false. Our attorneys have asked several times and asked the city to identify any construction defects caused by Big B Construction. To this day, not one thing has been identified. Nothing Big B did would have caused the horrific amount of cracking and spalling that occurred from the design. Another quote from an internal email from the city engineer, Jeff Warner. The city has carefully considered the nature and extent of the cracking and spalling occurring within the special concrete paving. Our determination, based on the evidence and research we've done, is that the cracking and spalling is a result of a design error and or emission with regard to improper concrete design. As such, it is our position that Willdan is responsible for any loss or damage the city incurs as a result. Another email correspondence from the construction management. They write, the city had 2 experts out who both state the design is the primary reason for the pervasive cracking and spalling. The city statement also read, the city implored both construction and design professionals to hold responsibility of their share of the problem, but were unable to resolve. This was false. In fact, the city forced Arts and Big B to remove and replace the flawed concrete design. The city's statements reads, Arts and Big B Construction are asking to be paid for both the original and concrete placement for the failed concrete. This is true. We expect to be paid for the full design. Haven't been paid for anything. The city is responsible for the design, and they are liable for any defects in the design. The city should have and would have done the right thing. First place, knowing the design issue, they could have paid us on a T&M basis to remove and replace the flawed concrete design. They would have saved hundreds of thousands of taxpayer dollars, and none of this litigation or delays or penalty costs.
Mr. Hobbs or Mr. Murdock, would you wish to respond?
Well, Mr. Mayor, I can read the statement that we released last week. I certainly can do that if you'd like.
I think it is on the internet, right?
Yes, it is.
Yeah, I think that's sufficient. You know, I mean, the clarification can be found on the internet. I think that's fair. The statement that was released is the current position of the city. Mr. Hobbs, do you have anything to add? No, Your Honor. Okay. All right. Next speaker is Christo Cornelissen. Following Christo is Jake Vernon.
Gentlemen, it looks like I'm going to mirror his, but on October 10th, the city of Elk Grove issued a negative statement pertaining to the contractors they are suing for the newly built aquatic center. Requests for the author were denied. The only information provided was that several persons from the city contributed, including the city's legal counsel. I wouldn't want my name attached to that either, because it's full of lies and half-truths. But I do agree that the story is without the benefit of important facts. I've provided a few pages of emails between the city, Roebelin, SWA, and Wildan. Notice that Arntz and Big B were not included in any of the design error emails. The city claims that once the city noticed deficiencies in the concrete, they immediately informed the contractors of their dissatisfaction and required them to remove and replace. An email dated April 11th, 2018 from Jeff Dees at Roebelin to various recipients, including Jeff Warner from the city, contradicts this statement unless 3 months is immediately. Big B was ordered to stop on July 10th. The city also stated that the concrete experts investigating the concrete defects have found failure to be both construction and design. Roebelin's VP contradicts this as well by stating the city had 2 concrete experts out who both stated that the design is the primary reason for the pervasive cracking and spalling. Requests to see these reports were also denied. Roebelin's senior construction manager goes on to say if this truly is a QA, QC, and workmanship issue, then why is the design team going through an exhaustive effort to modify the design to incorporate those items that were previously noted in the CR review some 18 months after bidding and after the design team reviewed and approved all pertinent submittals related to this scope of work? Just to reiterate, Big B Construction had nothing to do with the design of this project. They followed the plans and specs that they were given. The city also implored the construction and design professionals to take responsibility for their share of the problem. Well, shouldn't the city do the same? Isn't it the responsibility of the owner to warrant the plans and specifications? And don't they bear the responsibility for any defects and deficiencies within them? The bottom line is it was a terrible design and it failed miserably. And if it wasn't, why would they have redesigned it? The continuance of the smear campaign against Big B that is without merit, all the while protecting Wildan Engineering, the very ones responsible for this convoluted mess, is clearly a conflict of interest. The more the city protects Wildan, the more people notice and wonder what this is really about. I'm at risk to lose my job, and I'm not going to just sit back and watch the city bully a reputable and respected contractor.
Thank you, ma'am. Our next speaker is Jake Furnham. Following Jake is Lynn Wheat.
Council, thank you for your time. My name is Jake Vernon. I'm a superintendent for Big B Construction. A constructability review is a technique used to review a new construction project. What happens is a team of professionals will get together and go through the plans and specs from beginning to end. This process is in place to foresee any issues or constraints within the new project design prior to bidding and construction. It's a way of working out the bugs, and it works great. On October 28, 2016, Roebelin, the city's management team, received a copy of the Commons Project Schematic Design Submittal dated on the 14th of October. This consisted of 34 pages of conceptual sketches of the project. This submittal had no details and really nothing comprehensive enough to conduct a thorough constructability review. So the city decided that there would be no review of the schematic design at that time, nor did they request a review any later. The only constructability review was performed when there was 90% completed plans and specs on the 25th of January 2017. Robin provided their professional review back to the city on the 14th of February, 2017, with the understanding that the city's architect, an employee of Wildan Engineering, would take the changes, would make the changes through addendum, and here are some of those comments pertaining to the concrete. Various control joints and expansion joints are not defined or required anywhere within the design. These should be clearly defined and articulated within the design documents. Provide details for reinforcing if needed, along with other notes for clarity. And no corrections were made within the bid set and the following addendums after. The city has failed to realize their duty is greater to the contractor than the architect and engineers. It should not necessarily it should not be necessary for the contractor to prove negligence on the architect, the engineers, and the city to recover what's due. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Lynn Wheat. Following Lynn Wheat is Bonnie Stensler.
Good evening. I appreciate the opportunity to speak tonight. And first, I would like to share some of the personal things that I've been doing and city events that I've participated in. But really, tonight, I want to stick to some business of the city that I think should be addressed. And in particular, what I've asked and requested from you, all of you, is to discuss the meetings that you attend in representing Elk Grove. We often don't hear too much from what happens at Library Authority, or sometimes we'll get a better report at RT. Sandboard, the sewer district, we don't often hear too much. And I've been following that, as many members of our community have, because there's a particular parcel of land that was owned by the sewer district and the ratepayers in particular. And early history tells us that Syntex bought that, was in a negotiations for that property and had an escrow agreement with the sewer district. And Syntex went bankrupt. So somebody else picked up the property by the name of Silverado. And once again, we were going through the process as residents, wanting the best that we could get for that, and recognizing that the sewer district didn't really do a great job with the negotiations and the escrow, and there was going to be a gift of $800,000 of taxpayer money. Well, we've been following that, and it went into closed session, and there was a settlement agreement. And lo and behold, they don't have to, as you don't at the city council level, discuss settlement agreements or what the result of those settlement agreements are. So I'm here to share it with you. There was a settlement agreement. I have it. The ratepayers received a little less than $8 million once we got done paying for everything else. And lo and behold, Silverado turns around and sells the property to Elliott Homes for $20 million. Now, it's interesting. I read that in the Sacramento Business Journal. So this is how I find the information out. And I recognize that we have a few of you that served on these boards, understand the history of it, understand that residents in several different homeowners groups have been concerned about what's going on with this property, and we were not told. And that bothers me, because I have been following this, and for nothing to be said and nothing to be shared to any of those others that have been following this. This is discouraging. This is not transparency. So what concerns us the most is there's an SPA and there's a DA agreement that will expire in 2024. What will Elliott Homes bring to us? Or what will they give you so they can get what they want? And we are out, what, $12 million? Now they'll say that there were entitlements, but we have to go back. Syntex paid for a lot of those entitlements, not necessarily Silverado.
Thank you, ma'am. Our next speaker is Bonnie Stensler. Bonnie Stensler. Following Bonnie is Michael Manaski.
Good evening, Mayor Lee and council members. I'm Bonnie Stensler. I'm a resident of Glenbrook, Del Webb, as well as a board member on their homeowners association. where I also serve as board liaison to the city. Tonight, I just wanted to publicly thank Chief Albright for coming over to our community to meet our residents and be our guest speaker at our board meeting on October 16th. I have heard only the most complimentary remarks about your visits. My friends and neighbors really appreciated both the opportunity to meet you and the valuable information you shared with us. Even more so, I believe we all enjoyed your humor and your warmth. We'll definitely be inviting you back again. And on November 6th, we have the pleasure of Mayor Lee addressing our residents, which we are also looking forward to. Thank you to all the council, to City Manager Jason Bierman, Brad Kane, Kara. There's several people I have contacted on behalf of Glenbrook here, and you all have been very responsive to our needs, and it is much appreciated. My granddaughter is here with me tonight, Hannah. She came to the meeting earlier in the month, and she was quite impressed with the process. I know the wheels are working in her head of how she can present things at her school and so forth. And she just wanted to say a few words.
Thank you for your service.
And
it's nice. Thank you.
Thank you.
And the police chief she met last time, and what did he do? He's watching you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Our last speaker is Michael Manaski.
Regarding by-district elections, Councilman Steve Dietrich pouts at the dais, complaining that he's being bullied and a gun is being held to his head. He says he's offended. Mr. Dietrich doesn't understand bullying and demonstrates poor judgment, comparing a tough decision to having a firearm pointed at him. Maybe you should listen to the message and not the way I pronounce your name. Bullies pout while their victims live in fear of them. Bullies act offended while dispensing real emotional and physical injuries upon their suffering victims. Bullies tell their victims their time is up, to sit down and shut up. Bullies court powerful competitive agents while despising folks who struggle to find life in cooperative efforts. Bullies don't respect the civil rights of others. Bullies beat their wives, smack their children, and kick their dogs. When an environmental group goes to court to sue the city for the adverse effects of poor planning, or a small business appeals to get paid for pouring millions of dollars of concrete, or a civil rights office works to ensure everyone's vote counts, that's not bullying. Mr. Dietrich would be laughed out of court if he'd used the same language he did at the last city council meeting. In fact, he might be found in contempt with this terrible comment about this proposal being a gun to his head. We used to have 2 sheriffs on this dais. Thankfully, both are gone, as they routinely holstered handguns while seated here. Most assuredly, there are holstered handguns in this room right now. The chief probably has one, as do his employed sword officers present. Who knows how many concealed weapons there are in this room or in the immediate vicinity. Take that feeling you have when you say you feel like there's a gun to your head, Mr. Dietrich. Compare it to how you'd feel if the cold barrel of a semi-automatic pistol touched your temple right now. Is there a chambered round? Is the safety off? The insane clown president compares the congressional impeachment inquiry to a lynching. You, Mr. Dietrich, compare your vote for by-district elections as a gun held to your head. In a country where firearms outnumber residents, 2/3 of all violent, deadly gunfire occur in suicide. A despondent man holds a pistol to his head and pulls the trigger. That's the predominant anodyne to intractable depression in an already severely alienated society. It's high time this council approved by-district voting. Mr. Dietrich's offensive language from the last council meeting must be retracted. When we see such reprehensible behavior in our elected officials, whether president or city councilman, it's well nigh time to vote them out of office.
Thank you, Mr. Manaski. Seeing that there are no additional speakers signed up, let's move to the next item.
Take us to Section 6, General Administration Information.
Jason, hold on a second. Mr. Bernaski, I think one thing you forget, I've got my own freedom of speech rights as well.
All right. Okay, let's move to the next item.
All right, Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council, Vice Mayor, a few items to report on going on around the city. First of all, we had a very successful animal shelter grand opening on October 12th. I'm pleased to report that that day we had 6 dogs and 6 cats adopted. The week of the grand opening, we had 24 animals adopted. So really good news, been a great benefit to this community. I also want to report that Animal Services has started posting shelter statistics on the city's website so the members of the public can follow to see what's going on over there. Also, we have another event at our animal shelter coming up. The city has partnered with Beers and Sack to host Doctoberfest at the shelter on Saturday, October 26th from noon to 6 p.m. Pets are welcome, and the festivities will include vendors, tasty food, local beer, and Doctoberfest games, including wiener dog races. Admission is free. Drink tickets and food are available for purchase. You can visit the website, www.elkgrovedogtoberfest.com for more details. City's Recycling and Waste Division and the Police Department have teamed up to host a drug take-back event this Saturday from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. in front of City Hall. Visitors can bring their unwanted or expired medications in for free, safe disposal. Similar events are hosted by the city and agencies across the country twice yearly in conjunction with National Drug Enforcement Agency. City recently completed a before and after review of trail counts to evaluate the effectiveness of some trail improvements that are recently completed around the city. Strava Metro mobile phone data recorded a 150% increase in trail use as part of the Laguna Creek Open Space Preserve Trail project between 2018 and 2019, and a 320% increase in bicycle and pedestrian use between 2017 and 2018, thanks to the Laguna Creek Trail Camden Spur project. An interactive trail map to explore on your own can be found on the city's website. Routes to schools will be just a little bit safer next Wednesday morning when the Elk Grove Police Department launches their annual Operation Crosswalk campaign. Officers will be present at several Elk Grove elementary schools to educate drivers about traffic laws around school zones beginning at 7:30 a.m. The Casunas CSD and the City of Elk Grove are hosting a Dia de los Muertos celebration and movie night next Saturday, November 2nd at Dur Okamoto Park at 9550 Mainline Drive. Festivities will include entertainers, arts and crafts, food trucks, face painting, a showing of Disney Pixar's film Coco. Guests can bring a picture of a memento of a loved one to remember and honor their memory at the community event. For more information about this free family event, visit the CSD's website at yourcsd.com. And finally, Ready, Set, Grow. Police Department will once again be participating in No Shave November. Police Department employees will be allowed to grow facial hair in November to raise awareness and funding for cancer prevention, education, and research. Participating officers and staff will make a donation for the chance to grow out their facial hair until November 30th. All proceeds from No Shave November will be donated to a cancer research or patient support organization. The public is invited to participate as well, and all donations are welcome. Additional information will be released on the PD website and on social media platforms in the near future. And I remain happy to answer any questions that the council members might have.
Are there any questions? No questions. Will you be growing every year? And the chief?
That's a good question. I did it last year, and I'm still deciding if I'm gonna do it again. That's true. You gonna do it, Chief?
Thank you for the report. Let's start off with Councilmember Detrick.
Thanks, Mayor. I had the opportunity to support Councilmember Stephanie Nguyen. She was recognized for all of her work in the greater Sacramento area. It was a great event up at the Happy Garden in Sacramento. Went to the VIP animal shelter reception and then followed that weekend with the grand opening. Phenomenal facility. I'm very, very proud of the facility that's been put together. Went to the Project Ride Spaghetti Feed. to support them. Great event, fundraiser for some young men and women with disabilities. At the Highway 99 and Consumers Bridge grand opening, that's where the freeway dips underneath the railroad track just south of Elk Grove on 99, and that's all going to be redone, and there will be an overpass going over the railroad to help traffic and safety. Won't have any problems with flooding during certain events that we've had in the past. Went to the Teen Center fundraiser at the Greek Church. Great to be able to support the youth of our community. It was a great turnout and a very good fundraiser. And then, as mentioned earlier, went to the Festival of Lights that was done by our Diversity and Inclusion Commission, and that was a fantastic event. And that's all I have.
Okay. Council Member Soon.
All right, thank you, Mayor. Yes, I also attended the event where we honored Councilmember Wynn for the Frank Fat Community Service Award, and also attended the 35th anniversary of the Sacramento Region Conservation Corps. It's a great organization helping teens that have had some, and youth that have had some troubled past get back on their feet. I bring that up because they were partners with us to complete the Laguna Creek Trail that was just talked about, and it's just a great organization helping our youth. Attended the animal shelter grand opening event with the rest of my council colleagues. What a great milestone for our city. Councilmember Wynn and I attended the Franklin High School band review. That was great to see all the kids come out from different high schools, including our town of Paradise that came out. It was a really nice treat to see them back on their feet and competing. I think Councilmember Detrick mentioned the Strauss Masquerade Ball that support our Strauss Festival. If those of you in the audience have not been to the Strauss Festival, I highly encourage you to go this summer. We mentioned the Festival of Lights at Diwali. And then finally, I was at representing the city last week at the League of Cities, California League of Cities. And that was, it was an educational experience. We often, our council takes turns going down there. This year, a lot of things that are resonating or other cities throughout the state are dealing with: homelessness, challenges of engaging on social media, future of our local government and the issues that we're dealing with, and then our workforce, where are our next generation millennials going, and why are they going there? So those are some good conversations that were had. Transportation and even cannabis, that listening to cities are dealing with the new legislation around cannabis. So that's it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I couldn't make the Sacramento Transportation Authority meeting following the last council meeting. There was only one item on the agenda, and it was not Elk Grove specific. I did attend both events for the animal shelter. It's been mentioned by other council members. And I just want to say I'm impressed to hear that so many animals were adopted out, because in speaking with one of the shelter supervisors, apparently we had to ask the county to offload some animals to our facility so that we would have animals there for people to see in our brand new shelter, because most of you probably don't realize this, but in speaking with that shelter supervisor, 51% of the animals that our control officers come in contact with never even make it into the system. They are identified and turned right back around and brought back home to the family from whence they came. And so, you know, ultimately, and I've told this to people that were taking part in that celebration, it's a beautiful facility. We, I think, did a great job in designing it, but ultimately, if that thing sat empty every day, that means you're doing the right thing for those animals. So I know Mr. Detrick wouldn't like that, because there's no revenue in an empty shelter, but very little in a full one. So I think if you're doing it for the right reasons, that's okay. We didn't have an RT meeting on Monday. I did come out Wednesday to participate, or at least to just stop in and show my support for the Cone with a Cop at the McDonald's on Elk Grove Boulevard. I will say I don't know how many people were there specifically to get an ice cream cone. I never got my ice cream cone, but I won't hold that against the chief for too long. But everybody that was there, the kids were happy to come over and get a sticker and have an ice cream cone and just sort of spend some time with some people in uniform. So I just think it was an excellent event. The officers loved being there. There were representatives from the CSD as well as our officers and CSOs, and so it's just a great thing and good to see such great support from the community. And we did not have Sanitation District this morning, but since Ms. Wheat brought it up, she is aware that you cannot report out from closed session proceedings, so I couldn't say at the time, but I feel I can say it now that I told the board that what they were being offered in the settlement was too low, and they went along with it anyway, and I learned about the sale the same way that you did in the Business Journal, so I did a little digging, and Silverado owned the property for exactly 3 days. But that's how it goes down. We can do what we can do. So it was a bad deal. I think it's good to have it in the rearview mirror, and I look forward to working with Elliott Holmes on that parcel. That's all I have. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Vice Mayor. And Councilman Detrick, you had something?
Yeah, Chief, I did have one question about the animal shelter. When I was going through there, talking to some of the staff there, that one of the items that would be very, very useful would be the X-ray equipment. And they said that would probably cost about plus or minus $75,000. To make that facility, take it to the next level in that area, what would it take for that to happen? Do you guys have something in the near future for that, or is that something that we could help with?
Yeah, so we currently contract out those services. If there's an animal that needs x-rays, we have a contract for that to be done. Unfortunately, those costs are rising, and that's something we're considering. I believe at this point we're looking at our lines. I think there's capacity for us to be able to handle that without a request from council.
Okay, so because my understanding, not only for the immediate needs, but also sometimes for some diagnostic reasons, they're not doing it because of the inconvenience. Just trying to look at the staff time, the costs we're paying to other providers, and then having that for long term. I just was wondering if that's something that's a pretty serious consideration or not.
It is. We're looking at that holistically now as far as staff time, the transport time to get the x-rays done as it stands now, and whether having the equipment within the shelter is good for the animals as well as a good fiscal decision. So we're close to arriving at a recommendation, but assuming that recommendation is to buy the equipment, we believe we have the capacity in our current allocations to make that happen.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Awesome. The only thing I'd like to highlight is how impressed I was with the animal shelter. It's completely different when you see it on paper and then when you see it in person. I was thoroughly impressed. And of course, the number of people that came out, not only that, but I was thoroughly impressed that we just didn't have enough animals, so we had to borrow some animals, and of course those animals made their way to some homes. So looking forward to what the future would bring, but certainly I thought that staff did a very good job on pulling this together. Animal shelter wins an award in my heart. So aside from that, sanitation was canceled today and air quality is tomorrow. I do not have anything else that I wish to report. All right, let's move to the next item.
Take us to Section 8, our consent calendar items.
Okay, want to open for public comment. I see one member of public signed up to speak, Ms. Lynn Wheat on 8.8. Come on up.
Good evening. I'd like this pulled from consent and maybe my questions answered. I cringe whenever I hear the city is negotiating anything, be it property purchases, economic development incentives, anything. I have long suspected that Elk Grove's reputation as an easy mark precedes us. So in this particular land purchase, I see the city wants to pay Silverado Homes $2.9 million for a property that Zello estimates is worth only $1.2 million, and for which they bought it in October of 2017 for $1 million. I know people will say Zello is not accurate, but can they be over $1 million off for only 9.5 acres of developable land? Whether the money used to purchase land comes from budget reserves, housing impact fund, Mello-Roos, it makes no difference. Paying too much for property amounts to a misuse of public finance and amounts to a suspicious windfall for the seller. In this case, I won't imply that the numerous campaign contributions that Silverado Homes has made over the years matters, but I will say that none of the recent property purchases made by the city has ever mentioned an appraisal nor provided a copy of an appraisal to in the staff report. $2.9 million for $1.02 million piece of property. I ask, what is the public supposed to conclude whenever the city steps up to the negotiating tables? Can we discuss fair market value and appraisals? And I have a minute, I want to respond to Councilman Hume's comments. As far as the deal went between the sewer district and Silverado, that was first signed in May, and then it was finally filed, and the deed was the end of August. And I think that there's been some SAM board meetings. I could be completely wrong, but I would be curious if I was a member of a board and was able to be in closed session and things were being negotiated, have an opportunity in another closed session or pull the staff aside and say, what is the conclusion of something? I'm just curious about things I probably would have wanted to follow up when it involves taxpayer money. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Seeing that there are no additional speakers, I want to close public comment. Council deliberation and direction.
I'll move consent.
Got a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
There's a second. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Abstention? Next item.
Take us to Section 9, our public hearing, starting with item 9.1, which is a public hearing to consider the issuance of bonds by the California Statewide Communities Development Authority in support of the Agave Apartments project.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. I'm Sarah Bontrager, your Housing and Public Services Manager. I'm here tonight asking you to conduct a public hearing pursuant to the Federal Tax Equity and Fiscal Responsibility Act, or TEFRA. The TEFRA regulations require that a public hearing be held by the governing body of the jurisdiction in which a project to be financed is located, and that the governing body approve the financing, even though nothing you're doing tonight commits the city to making any payments or borrowing any money itself. What the request is from the owner of the Agave Apartments, which is a project that the city financed in the early 2000s. It's a 188-unit affordable housing complex. They are proposing to re-syndicate their tax credits and obtain new bond financing for their project to finance the acquisition and rehabilitation of the Agave Apartments. That will provide a meaningful benefit to the residents of that project. The Joint Powers Authority that would issue the bonds is the California Statewide Communities Development Authority, and they were formed with the purpose of assisting governments and nonprofits and businesses with the issuance of this type of debt. The debt to be issued will be, as I said, the sole responsibility of the Agave by Vintage Limited Partnership, and the city has no financial or legal obligation or responsibility with regard to the repayment of debt. All the financing documents will carry disclaimers that the loan is not an obligation of the city, and the city bears no costs in the issuance of the proposed debt. So staff's recommendation is, in order to finance this project and continue to keep it affordable, that the council adopt a resolution approving the issuance of bonds by the California Statewide Community Development Authority for the benefit of the Agave Apartments property. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Are there any questions? No. No questions. Perfectly clear. Thank you.
Sure.
All right.
Thank you.
At this point, we'll declare public hearing open and open public comment. Seeing that no members of the public to sign up to speak, want to close public comment. Declare public hearing closed. Council deliberation and direction.
I'll move staff's recommendation.
Got a motion, second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstention? Next item.
Take us on to item 9.2, which is a public hearing to consider introduction of an ordinance amending certain sections of Title 16 of the Elk Grove Municipal Code relating to buildings and construction to implement provisions of various 2019 California State Building Codes.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. Shane Diller, Assistant Director in Development Services. This item before you is our triennial code adoption. The building codes, as they're commonly known, are actually 9 parts of Title 24 of the California Code of Regulations. And every 3 years, they are adopted by state agencies, most specifically the Building Standards Commission and the Housing and Community Development Departments. into the California building codes. Those codes are then adoptable by local agencies and are amendable if the agencies can make certain findings. The item before you this evening does not propose any local amendments, and we do not anticipate making any local amendments in this code cycle. There are some changes in this code cycle that I think are important to point out. There are increased standards in this code for deck installations, specifically in response to what's been known as the Berkeley balcony collapse, where seven students and visitors at UC Berkeley were killed in a balcony collapse a few years ago. We have language in this code cycle that gives the building department guidance when reviewing the construction of what are commonly known as tiny homes and in emergency housing and shelter situations, specifically the more creative use of small structures in emergency housing circumstances. There are also changes in this code cycle that require energy efficiency improvements on single-family homes. Specifically, it will require that all new single-family homes built after January 2020 have solar or photovoltaic panels installed on them in order to meet the energy efficiency requirements that California is striving for. We don't technically need to adopt the codes into our local Elk Grove Municipal Code to have them take effect. They're effect in law January 1st, whether we adopt them or not, but we recommend adopting them into the code in order to more clearly demonstrate to our community which codes are enforced here and to provide some of the administrative and enforcement tools that the municipal code brings when we deal with code administration and code enforcement. With that, I'm available for any questions.
Are there any questions? One question, Vice Mayor.
Hi, Shane. So after reading in the staff report about the parsing out the fire code and working with CSD to work on some potential local amendments, I reached out to the fire chief to kind of get a better idea of what that is, and apparently it revolves around the idea that state codes are applied with a minimally acceptable standard, and that applies whether you're in Eureka or Los Angeles or Elk Grove. And there might have been some issue there as to whether or not they were applicable or whether or not. Can you give me an idea as to what local fire codes we might be looking to implement that aren't codified in the state code?
Sure. Staff is still working and close to the final draft of a fire code, which we anticipate bringing to a future meeting shortly. In short, they are generally local fire codes related to the square footage in which sprinklers are applied. There is a general regional standard that's applied that's lower than the state standard that's applied, and it's a standard we've applied in the past. There are currently issues being discussed related to making sure that fire apparatus have the appropriate access to new development that's built, the distances of fire hydrants, some of these things.
And so our local codes that would be more restrictive than the state codes?
In the situation, what's being worked on with fire now would be local amendments that would be more restrictive than the state codes, as recommended by our fire safety experts at the CSD.
Okay, and we did not find any instances in the remainder of the codes where we felt local ordinances ought to apply?
No, none of the other codes have anything that we feel is something that needs a more strict local amendment to them. Often you see those local amendments adopted when you have specific weather or environment-related situations like snow load, wind load, issues on the coast. Elk Grove, unfortunately, is fairly boring geographically, and so we have very little wind threat, snow threat. We have no earthquake threat that requires us delve into any of these issues.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you. Right, this point I want to declare public hearing open. Open for public comment. Seeing that no members of the public signed up to speak, want to close public comment and declare public hearing closed. Council deliberation and direction.
I'll move to introduce and waive the full reading by substitution of title only an ordinance amending certain sections of Title 16 of the Elk Grove Municipal Code related to buildings and construction to implement provisions of the 2019 California State Building Code, 2019 California Administrative Code, Section 16.02.010, 2019 California Building Code, Section 16.04.010, 2019 California Residential Code, Section 16.10.10, 2019 California Green Building Code, Section 16.14.010, 2019 California Plumbing Code, Section 16.24.010, 2019 California Electrical Code, Section 16.28.010, and 2019 California Mechanical Code, Section 16.32.010, and 2, adopting the Elk Grove Municipal Code, Chapter 16.09, relating to the 2019 California Existing Building Code, and Chapter 16.11, relating to the 2019 California Historical Building Code.
Second.
All right, got a motion second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed, abstention? Next item.
Takes us on to item 9.3, which is actually 4 public hearings to consider the 48th annexation to Community Facilities District 2003-2 for police services, the 54th annexation to CFD 2006-1 for maintenance services, 17th annexation to Street Maintenance District Zone 5N, and the 29th annexation to Stormwater Drainage Fee Zone 2.
Good evening, Mayor and members of the council. I am Kara Taylor Seaman, Finance Analyst here at the City of Elk Grove. I do have a brief presentation for you regarding the annexation that are up for public hearing tonight. To start, as a quick point of reference and review, there are 8 maintenance districts that the city currently administers. The requirements are really specific for each one of them, and each project is unique in as far as which districts are applied to them. Those requirements vary by geographic location and building use. The annexations into the appropriate districts is typically part of the conditions of approval, and those are not cleared until these annexations are complete. And then finally, annual rate adjustments apply to each one, and those are also very specific. They're specific to each district. There are 2 projects for your consideration tonight. One is Bruceville Meadows, which is annexing into the CFD 2003-2, that's for police services. They're also annexing into the Street Maintenance District, number 1, Zone 5, as well as the Stormwater Drainage District. And then Trojan Storage Expansion is annexing into 2 districts. One is the Maintenance, CFD 2006-1, and Stormwater Drainage. This is a map and a quick description of Bruceville Meadows. It's a residential project with 332 single-family homes. Those annexations are listed as on the previous slide. This is located at the northeast corner of Bruceville Road and Camera Road. Trojan Storage Expansion is a non-residential project. It's just over 7.3 acres, and they are located on Union Parkway east of Elk Grove, Florin Road. So that completes the description of what is being presented tonight, and I am available for your questions.
Okay, any questions for staff at this point? I have a question. We received a fee protest letter today from this project. Does that have anything to do with what we're about to vote upon right now?
The fee protest letter is for Bruceville Meadows. They will be, as part of their conditions for approval, they will be annexing into CFD 2006-1, the maintenance services. We are discussing with them the appropriate zone assignment for that, so that will come back to council at a later date.
Okay, but it's not specific to the fees that they're protesting?
Not the ones tonight, no.
Okay, very good. In that case, we'll go ahead and declare the public hearing open and open the public comment opportunity. I don't have anyone signed up to speak. Is there anyone wishing to speak? Seeing no one, we'll go ahead and close the public comment opportunity, declare the public hearing closed, move to council direction and deliberation or a motion.
Move motion A1.
Second.
All right, a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? If we can have the results, please.
Of 332 possible votes, 332 affirmative votes were cast, authorizing the City of Elk Grove to levy a special tax at the rate apportioned and described for Community Facilities District number 2003-2 for police services. The measure passes with more than 2/3 of all votes cast in the election in favor of the measure. A resolution declaring the results of the election is available for council consideration.
Okay, is there a motion to adopt that resolution?
Motion to adopt the resolution.
Okay, is there a second? Second. A motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
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 Motion A3, introduce and waive the full reading by substitution of title only, an ordinance levying and apportioning the special tax and territory annexed to Community Facilities District number 2003-2, Police Services, annexation number 48, and amending Elk Grove Municipal Code section 3.18.010.
Okay, that's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. On to the second public hearing, please. Declare the public hearing open for CFD 2006-1. Open the public comment opportunity. Have nobody signed up to speak. Close the public comment opportunity. Declare the public hearing for 2006-1 closed.
So motion B1.
All right. Motion. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Request the results of the tabulation.
Of 8 possible votes, 8 affirmative votes were cast, authorizing the city of Elk Grove to levy a special tax at the rate apportioned and described. The measure passes with more than 2/3 of all votes cast in the election in favor of the measure. A resolution declaring the results of the election is available for council consideration.
Move motion B2.
All right. A motion to adopt that resolution. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Move motion B3, introduce and waive full reading by substitution of title only, an ordinance levying and apportioning the special tax and territory annexed to the Community Facilities District number 2006-1, Maintenance Service, annexation number 54, and amending the Elk Grove Municipal Code, section 3.19.001.
010. Second.
All right, a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Declare the public hearing open for S&D 5-N Annex 17. Open the public comment opportunity. I have nobody signed up to speak. Is there anyone wishing to speak? Seeing nobody, go ahead and close the public comment opportunity. Declare the public hearing for SM 5-9 Annex 17 closed. Request the clerk to provide the results of the ballot tabulation.
There is no majority protest of 8 possible votes weighted according to the proportional financial obligation for each property. 8 affirmative votes were returned. The ballot approves the proposed assessment and the proposed inflation and adjustment limit described for the parcel identified in the ballots. Resolution determining the levy assessments in the districts available for council consideration.
Move motion C.
All right, I have a
Second.
motion. I have a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We'll move on to the fourth public hearing. Declare the public hearing for SWDF Annex 29 open. Open the public comment opportunity. I have no one signed up. Is there no one wishing to speak? Seeing no one, we'll go ahead and close the public comment opportunity. Declare the public hearing for SWDF Annex 29 closed, and we'll request the results of the ballot tabulation.
And again, there's no majority protest of 340 possible votes weighted according to the proportional financial obligation for each of the properties. 340 affirmative votes were returned. Ballot approves the proposed assessment and the proposed inflation adjustment limit described for the parcels identified in the ballots. Resolution determining the levy assessments in the districts available for council consideration.
Move motion D.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, Mayor, it's okay to come back now. The heavy work's been done. On to item 9.4, please.
Item 9.4 is a public hearing to receive input regarding the content of draft maps for transitioning to by-district city council member elections. Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and council members. I'm Jason Lindgren, your city clerk. I'm just going to be popping up to the podium. I have a brief presentation. This is coming at the end of 4 public hearings so far that we've had to date on this issue. The presentation will be brief, but I'll go through some items and then we'll open it up for some public comment. But I'm just going to step up to the podium right now. I'm going to step back to my spot because I have to flip over the screen. So good evening, back again, and this is for fourth in a series of public hearings that we've been doing in order to make a transition to a by-district election system for the city of Elk Grove. This is just going to be a quick, brief overview of what we've been going through to date. We started this process at the beginning of September and actually going all the way back to August 28th with the resolution of intent. But the public hearing started in the month of September. Here we're rolling into October. And what you'll see with this is there's a combination of items. Item 9.4 and item 9.5 are relating to the same issue. What this is this public hearing is really intended as the conclusion of listening to the input about maps, looking at a map, and at the end of item 9.4, what we're looking for is direction from council to select a final map. What we're seeing in the next item of 9.5 is the actual action to adopt. So if there's anything that stops us from going forward with a map during item 9.4, we'd probably not be moving on with item 9.5. What we're looking for is that conclusion. So for members of the audience who may want to be commenting about the district map that's selected, this item 9.4 is really an opportunity for you to step forward and have your opinions heard and be part of the public comment regarding selection of a final map and the content of that map. As we move forward, as I said, August 28th is 2019 is when we did the resolution of intent. And since with that action, that was what triggered us to move through these series of public hearings. We had 2 in September. Those public hearings were intended to hear about the composition of the city and what might be part of what would be the composition of district maps. We received feedback from the public, but we also received feedback from the city council about what you wanted to see in terms of potential maps coming forward. With that feedback that you provided to us, we gave that over to our hired demographer firm, National Demographics Corporation, and I do want to say that I have Robert McIntyre here this evening from National Demographics Corporation who will be able to field questions. But it was really from that feedback that NDC put together the maps that we returned back to in October. When we came back in October, we had a few different variations of maps for the city council and the public to review. We received additional comments from the council on maps. Those additional comments were taken by NDC, and they drafted more additional maps for consideration for where we are tonight. So again, as we're going here, this is the public hearing in which we're seeing this input for selecting a map. That's our end goal for item 9.4. We are going to have another public hearing immediately after this item, and that would be the one that, if we are at the point of selecting a map, to introduce the ordinance to adopt the map. Our current district map was the process, kind of how we started from heading out on this path. This was the map that we had from 2011. This also set us up, though, with the 4 districts that we had from district elections. And what we're doing with this transition process is going into by-district elections. This is the same review that we've had over the map that we have as a current map. The current map that we have for our districts is one of the maps that's up for consideration in terms of moving forward to the by-district transition. Again, we had the public hearings in September. This was to get and receive feedback just about composition of what should be considered for creating districts for Elk Grove. Part of this as well is that we've gone through this process in 2011 with redistricting, where we did have an extensive community outreach about what should go into the composition of our districts. And it's why this current district map has remained throughout the dialogue of being an option for switching to a by-district system. As we move forward, we added information from October 9th. That was where we came back with NDC presenting maps for consideration based on the feedback from September. And what came out of the discussion from October 9th was kind of a distilling of maps that were reviewed at that hearing. And where we're really looking tonight is at 3 different variations. The first being the current district map, the one that we adopted back in 2011 with our redistricting effort. We have a map revision that's called this divided growth, areas A. And this is one of the first kind of versions that was presented on October 9th. This is without any changes to it as what was presented back on October 9th. What we also received feedback from the October 9th meeting was taking that same divided growth concept map, but keeping the contiguous nature of District 1. And this became a 3rd map up for consideration. The other maps that we saw on October 9th, we didn't receive direction from council, so those fell off to the side. And so what we're focusing on is this current district map. The divided growth areas A is how we've titled it, and then divided growth areas B, which was the alteration that came forward. What the next couple of slides are going to be are just these diagrams of the maps. I'm going to talk about the 4th public hearing. We're here to hear the conclusion of input on these draft maps. Our target goal is to see if we have a map that we can come to a conclusion at the end of this public hearing in order to move forward with item 9.5. I do just want to put out there, between these 3 maps, if we look at the maps and we have a decision to not adopt any of these maps and want to consider some other kind of revision, or we look at these maps and say, well, what if we move this line here or this line there? One of the requirements that we're going to be that we're going to be required to do is to return this matter for further consideration. So if we don't get to a map and we want to redraw maps, consider a new map revision, part of the requirement that we have is to publish those maps 7 days in advance before we make a decision on actually adopting a map. And we've done that with these 3. We've gone out and we've done public notice. We've kind of gone extensive beyond that. We did a public notice in the paper, but we've published these on our website to make these 3 map versions available. We did this last week, so we're within that 7-day time frame. But if we were to make any changes tonight, we'd be looking to come back at a future council meeting, giving that 7-day time frame for folks to be able to see what those options are. These next slides are actually going to be the district maps. What you'll see is each map in kind of the two flavors. So one of them that we've done with the color coding in order to make the distinction for the districts 1 through 4. So this is our current district map. The second slide is just going to be the same map, but it takes away kind of the coloring of the map, so you can see just a little bit more of the detail what's underneath as far as all the color coding or the districts. It's harder to see those district lines, part of why we did the color coding. But basically, I'm going to phase through. The divided growths was one that was one of the maps that was drawn and available prior to the October 9th hearing. It was discussed at the October 9th hearing, and this is one of the maps that still was going to be remaining to be reviewed, but this was one of the maps that was also altered and became this divided growth areas B that we'll see in just a little bit. But phasing through to kind of the skeleton version, though with more detail. And this divided growth areas B would be based on the feedback from that October 9th hearing. This is what National Demographics Corporation came back with the map. And basically what National Demographics Corporation back from October 9th, they're doing the balancing game of looking at the population equality. Even though the divided growth area has a concept to accommodate for growth, there still are restrictions in that plus minus 5% of shifting between populations. So they have those restraints as well as just looking at overall demographic information. And again, our representative from NDC would be able to help out with how they came about these maps. But one of those other big constraints that they put out there is we are also limited by how the census block map underlies all of this. And so when you start looking at how divisions get made along lines, it's usually more of a division that's based on a census block that comes from our federal government. It's not always something that coincides with all the, perhaps what's a little more intuitive for us in Elk Grove is what would be a barrier for delineating between districts. And then again, this version of the map, but kind of just pulling out some of the information of streets and other factors down below. One element that we're going to reiterate throughout this process is that we're not going to be changing our sequence of elections. So when we have our districts 1 through 4, we're still going to be seeing in November 2020 districts 1 and districts 3 coming up for election. 2022, we're going to see districts 2 and 4 coming back for election. Of course, we have the directly elected mayor, which comes back with every election sequence. But that's one of these elements is that as part of our public hearings, there's not going to be any transition as to when the offices come up for elections. So really what we're focused on is on the district map itself and seeing if we can get to the finish line of seeing what kind of district map we want for a by-district election system. And for that, I think that's the end of the presentation. If there's any questions, I can field those, but if we'd like to take public comment, here's some final input from the public on just the content of the maps that have been drawn. And then we have also Robert McIntyre from NDC available for questions after public comment if you want to ask him for any detailed information about the nature of the maps.
Okay, any questions? No questions? Thank you. Right, at this point, I want to declare public hearing open. I want to open for public comment, and first speaker lined up to speak is Lynn Wheat. Miss Lynn Wheat, come on up, please. Following Lynn is Julia Dibb.
Good evening. I believe that we ought to keep with our current map. It always is easier to spend somebody else's money till it's gone. But most likely after 2020, we would have to change the map again after the census is completed. So it seems silly to me at this time that we're going to go into paying more money to change a map that we might need to change again. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Next speaker is Julia Dibb. Following Julia is Gary Sibner.
Hi, I just learned about the by-district election changes literally last week. So we live in the Stone Lake neighborhood, which is the western edge of Elk Grove, and we're primarily concerned with being able to vote in the 2020 elections. It looks like that we would be in District 1 and therefore we will be able to. So I would like to reiterate that we would like to be able to do that. That way we're not disenfranchised and are able to voice our concerns about the CNU hospital during the next election. So thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Gary Sibner. Following Gary is Deborah Sibner. Mr. Sibner, Gary Sibner. Oh, there you are. Come on up, please. Following Gary is Deborah.
Got a few of my steps tonight. Thank you. Mayor Lee, council members, thank you for allowing me to speak. It appears that the council will adopt by-district voting for the 2020 elections, which is laudable and the right thing to do. Rather than leave that alone, however, the council has decided to complicate the issue by considering new maps, one of which would remove Stone Lake from Council Member Suin's District 1 and move it to Council Member Nguyen's District 4 for the 2020 election. You may hear the word disenfranchisement a lot tonight. This is exactly what the map would do. District 1 comes up for re-election in 2020. District 4 does not, but you already know that. By adopting the map, you will disenfranchise thousands of voters in Stone Lake from our right to add our voice and our vote in 2020. Why? It's well known that there's considerable opposition in Stone Lake to the proposed CNU hospital. By removing Stone Lake from Councilmember Suin's district, it also removes substantial opposition to him for his actual or perceived support for CNU. Whether that is the intent or not, the optics are bad, and it just doesn't pass the smell test. Please leave the maps as they are until after the 2020 census and consider the demographics then. Stone Lake has 1,467 homes and thousands of voters. Please do not disenfranchise thousands of us in Stone Lake. Please do not foreclose our constitutional right to vote. Please do not make it appear that it's being done for political reasons. Please do the right thing and leave the maps alone. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Deborah Sibner. Deborah Sibner, and then Stacy Anderson.
Mayor Lee, and City Council members. I am here tonight to go on the record in favor of by-district voting. I also want to express my disapproval of any changes being considered to the current district boundaries. Census data will be collected in 2020 and available for use thereafter. Once valid and updated data is available, then new boundaries might be considered based on updated population statistics. To consider making changes to district boundaries at this time is politically suspicious and unwarranted. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, ma'am. Stacy Anderson. Stacy Anderson. Following Stacy Anderson is Daisy Hughes.
Hello. I'm also in favor of keeping the current map. Communities within the districts do have commonalities and they share similar concerns like environmental concerns, and it seems that it would make sense to keep those together. For example, in West Elk Grove, we share floodplain issues. As it's been said before, unlike any other part of the city. East Elk Grove might have the rural issues that they have in common. Central Oak Grove, they might have the traffic and crime issues that are similar as well. So having one voice to represent those people with such strong issues seems to make the most sense, and that appears to be what our current map does. Also, I'm concerned about altering the maps and altering the voting abilities for several residents who would get left out of the 2020 election ballot. After 2020 census results come out, the maps are probably going to have to be reevaluated and looked at again. So why put the cart before the horse? And I know that some people have argued that more than one council member in certain areas would mean that we'd have more representation, but I would counter that by saying it's more likely that if a large number of concerns spread across communities with different concerns are trying to be approached by one council member, their voices and their concerns get diluted and ultimately muted. So I think it's fair to say that even if we did have one council member representing our individual concerns, you would all work together very well to make sure that those are heard and hopefully come to a consensus that would be good for everybody's district. I'd like to vote in 2020, so please keep the current map. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Daisy Hughes. Following Daisy is Maureen Kraft.
Hi, I'm a Stone Lake resident, and I'm also in favor of keeping the current map the way that it is.
There's no need to make changes until evaluating real data with the 2020 census, so we can leave the maps the way they are. Also, more importantly, I want to vote in 2020. The idea that Stone Lake residents and Lakeside residents could potentially not be voting until 2024 under a certain scenario that Mayor Lee, you pointed out at the last hearing, is absolutely unbearable. Our community is in the process of potentially changing, and we want to be able to have a voice in this process, and so we absolutely need to be able to vote in 2020. Looking at divided growth map A, that is incredibly problematic and angering to us that that was even pushed forward from the last hearing after expressing our concerns. But divided growth map B just seems to move the problem a little more east. If you look at it, it looks like District 4 is taking up some area from District 3. And so again, you're gonna have a population of people that are not allowed the opportunity to vote in 2020. People right now, under the current maps, are expecting to vote under 2020, and that's the way it should proceed at this time. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Marion Craft. Calling Marion Craft is Ian Stewart Vital.
Good evening, Mayor Lee and the council. I'm in favor of course, by district and also keeping our current map. For me, I'm in District 3, and it's even a little bit more different for me. If we take on new maps, you'll be violating the civil rights of people to vote. And my mother fought for the right for me to vote, and so did my grandmother. And so it is very important that we do not disenfranchise our voters, and it is very important that we do not violate any Elk Grove residents' civil right to vote, because with the new maps that were put forth, some Elk Grove residents would be bypassed, so that would mean they would go 8 years without voting. And you guys were elected to do the right thing, and the right thing right now is to keep the current map as it is and to go by district. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Ian Stewart Vital. Following Ian is Kimberly Stewart Vital.
Good evening, gentlemen. So, for one, I am in favor of the by-district voting. It's what is right based off of, you know, keeping people properly franchised and allowing people to vote and proper representation and all that. And you already know this. And considering that's the purpose of the whole by-districting thing, it doesn't make sense to change the map and disenfranchise people when the whole purpose of the by-districting is to make sure representation is better. So instead of wasting a whole lot of time and effort and energy looking at all these other maps that it seems that nobody here actually wants, it seems to make the most sense to me and everybody else that we just go ahead and adopt the original map, keep it as it is, because we're going to be reevaluating it in 2020 anyways. And at that point, we can figure out, okay, where should the lines be based off the new census data. So, thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next speaker is Kimberly Stewart Vital. Following Kimberly is Andres Ramos.
Hi, we've spoken before and we'll do it again if we have to. I support the original map. It's the only way, and as the person who came to discuss all of the information about the maps during the last meeting said, it is the only way for everyone in Elk Grove who is currently registered to vote to continue voting in the 2020 election. It's the only way to not disenfranchise our voters. The whole purpose of this was to make sure that our voting rights are not being violated to go to by-district voting. Now, I know some people are feeling awfully pressured to go to by-district voting unwillingly. However, as I tell my children on a regular basis, doing the wrong thing over and over again doesn't make it right. So I suggest that you do the right thing. Don't support other maps until we actually have the data in 2020. Go by district and do it right with the original map. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Andres Ramos. Following Andres Ramos is Monica Madrid.
Good evening, Mayor Lee and council members. Andres Ramos. So thank you for beginning this process that hopefully will be completed tonight to move to by-district elections under the CVRA process. But as has been mentioned, this is kind of a deviation from what you're supposed to be doing. This was an opportunity for the council to move to by-district elections, not really an opportunity to try to change the maps as part of that process. Now, of course, the law requires that you have to adopt a map, but you have a perfectly good map. You know, and as my mother would tell me, you can't open a new box of cereal unless, well, you still have a perfectly good one right here and you haven't finished yet. So there's no need to throw away a good map that ensures that folks are voting in 2020 who expect to be voting in 2020 and not use us as an opportunity to, while you're about to sort of bring to a conclusion potential litigation, to suddenly open yourself up to new potential litigation on the basis of potential gerrymandering. So let's keep focused on what this whole process is about, moving to by district for 2020, and just keep the current map to keep it simple, make sure that the city's playing it safe, and that you're doing what we're here to do. But again, thank you for doing that, but let's keep focused. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Monica Madrid. Following Monica is Randy Becker.
Hi, I first want to thank all the council members and the mayor for being here and taking time and listening to us. I know this is a difficult subject, but I really do support by-district elections, and I also oppose the maps. I think that we should wait until 2022 when the regular redistricting comes around before we can look at redistricting the maps. Thank you.
Thank you. Randy Becker. Following Randy Becker is Amar Shigil.
Mayor, Vice Mayor, Council. As I sat through these meetings for what now, almost 2 years, I learned something new the last meeting. I think the process is something that every one of us need to go through to understand what the outcome really is. The map A, at your request or your recommendation, might not sit well with most of the people in here. But I have to believe that for the civics that I've watched, having two representatives in the West is only going to benefit those residents. All you have to do, and I continue saying it over and over and over again, all you have to do is look at Sacramento politics. Look at the Sacramento Council. Look what they argue about. Look at the deals that are made, and look what goes on. Because I truly believe that this council will do what's in their heart. But once we go to 2020 and districts are redistricting and new voters vote other councils in, their heart is going to be in their district, not in the city. And you will start to see what Sacramento deals with. I can't support the map because of what we learned would disenfranchise voters. It would be extremely unfair, and it would not be something I could stand here and support. I've been very adamant about what I believe here and at CSD, and I can't waver because those voters have a right to their vote. At some point in 2020, when the census is completed, then we can redistrict and we can really look at the map and make sure that it's done better for the next 10 years. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next speaker is Amar Shergill. Following Amar Shergill is Tracy Stafford.
Good evening, Council. Thank you again for putting in what looks like might be a long evening, hearing all the public comment. I know you do that on many occasions, and you put in long hours out in the community, so thank you, all of you, for doing that. I join all of my neighbors in supporting the current map because it may disenfranchise neighborhoods, particularly the Stone Lake neighborhood, which we've heard folks talk about. And not only would it disenfranchise them now, it might actually disenfranchise them twice. So if the council was to make the self-interested decision to take Stone Lake out of Councilmember Swen's district and add it to another, then I presume they will, 2 years from now, make again another self-interested decision and put that district right back into Councilmember Swen's district, eliminating the possibility that they'll actually vote next time around. We'd have 8 years of disenfranchisement. So what I'd like to see is the council to make it clear that the maps we have are just fine. We'll get the new data after the census, and then we'll change the maps then. Thank you all.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Tracy Stafford.
Good evening. I wanted to start by just saying thank you. You know, I really didn't think that I would ever see this city go to by district or even consider it to this degree. And I thank Mayor Lee for spearheading. And I know that some of you are coming along kicking and screaming, but even so, I want to thank you for that. And I don't need to regurgitate what's been said over and over again. You know, clearly it makes no sense to disenfranchise Elk Grove voters. And I keep hearing about not wanting it to be like Sacramento politics. Damn it, Elk Grove politics are a hot mess. So let's not talk about Sacramento. Let's just focus on Elk Grove. And, you know, it's doing the right thing by going to by district, that is number one. But why would we even consider changing the map? That just makes no sense. And usually if it makes no sense on paper, there's something else going on behind the scenes. So all I can say is, again, thank you for the by-district voting, and let's just keep the map the same. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, seeing that there are no additional speakers signed up to speak, want to close public comment and declare public hearing closed. Council deliberation and direction. Members? Vice Mayor, you want to jump in?
Same map.
Okay. Do you want to say anything? No? Councilman? No, you good?
Yeah, I supported the same map previously. I know I've been pretty clear. I support the from district because I think personally it's a better model. A lot of you are concerned about the voting rights of the residents of Elk Grove. Well, there's two sides to that. There's some people who want it and some people don't. So whatever side wins, the other people aren't going to be happy. They're going to feel like they're being violated as well. And there's probably just as many people, maybe even more. The majority of people that I've talked to that really understand the from district model really appreciate the value of it. As I mentioned before, I think this is an unintended consequence. I don't think this was ever the intention of the state legislators to have this done on a from district. I agree in the areas that have at large without districts, I agree that's not the right way to do it. But ours is a very unique model. And some of the people mentioned about people not being able to vote in 2020. Well, right now, if we go to districts, a by-district system, 2 of the districts aren't going to be able to vote for any of the council members. So somebody's not going to be able to vote. Right now, everybody has that opportunity. So we're going to take 2 of the districts will not be able to vote. But I will support staying with the map that we have.
Okay. Go ahead, Councilman.
Yeah, I want to thank everybody for coming out tonight. It was great to hear from everybody. I wish we had more opportunity for dialogue. This process went underway I think a lot of comments were said that if it would happen in 2022 when we had census data, that would make the most sense. We underwent the process now, and so we were having conversations, and I think conversations are good about all of this. This is an important issue, and I'm glad to see everybody here tonight. I wish we had more time for more conversations, but I agree also with my colleagues and folks that were stayed here tonight. The original map is fine.
Sure. Thank you, Councilmember. You know, I've always been supportive of the original map, but you know, I don't want to invalidate what both of the vice mayors and also Councilman Soon brought up, because these are opportunities in which we can explore, right? Even though we may not want to move in that direction now, but we can certainly explore them again. So I think that's very helpful input, and we heard from the community. So I will be in favor of the same maps. We have a consensus? We good? All right. Then let's move to the next item.
So with that, our next item is going to be item 9.5, which is informed by using this map, which will become the exhibit to the ordinance that's part of this item. So this is a public hearing to consider introduction of an ordinance approving a district map and requiring members of the city council be elected by district with an elected mayor, consistent with Elections Code Section 110 and Government Code Section 34886. Again, I'll pop up to the podium. I'll move through this pretty quickly because it's all repeat information, but I do want to go over just some information about what's in the ordinance.
Members, you want to waive it? You're going to say the same thing?
I'll be very brief.
All right.
Just get to the chase of the ordinance.
All right.
I will be flipping through a few of these slides because these are repeat information, but just to clarify from the action taken at 9.4, which was to move forward the current district map. So that pushes away the other map slides. So with our current district map, this is the map that we'll be moving forward with Exhibit A to the ordinance. And I think where we want to get to is these two elements, which is that the sequence of our elections will be remaining the same through this action. And so we will see council districts 1 and 3 coming up at the November 2020 election. What will happen is districts 2 and 4 will come up at the November 2022 election. We will still have the office of the directly elected mayor. That'll come up every 2 years, so that will be seen on items coming forward. But what's really happening through this ordinance, part of what the action is we make this declaration that this is an action being taken in furtherance of the purposes of the California Voting Rights Act. That's a requirement that we're going to need to do in order to do this as a vote of the legislative body to make this transition to by district. What this is also going to do is it's going to adopt the selected map, which is our current district map, that same map from our 2011 redistricting effort, but the map that was identified under the public hearing of 9.4. That becomes Exhibit A to this ordinance and the action that we're asking you to take tonight. And what that's also going to do is within that action is just confirming again the sequence of elections of districts 1 and 3 occurring in November 2020, districts 2 and 4 occurring in 2022, and that the office of the directly elected mayor remains being voted on every 2 years. There's also a section that adds into our Elk Grove Municipal Code the nature of the by-district elections and the office of the directly elected mayor. Those will be the actions within that ordinance, but again, Exhibit A is our current district map. That's what we'd be considering, and I'll turn it over for public comment for us to hear about what folks have to say on this. Any other questions?
Any questions? There are no questions. Thank you. Okay, at this point, we'll declare public hearing open for public comment. I see a couple of speakers signed up to speak. So let's go ahead and start with Ian Stewart Vital.
Evening again. I just wanted to say thank you for using the current map. I do really appreciate that you listened to all of us and that you chose to do the right thing. So, thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker is Andres Ramos. Whoops, I'm sorry, Kimberly Stewart Vital. And then Andres Ramos.
Thank you for not only hearing us, but listening. It really makes a difference.
Thank you. Andres Ramos.
I just want to say thank you for keeping the current map and of course for taking the action right now that I hope you will take to adopt the resolution and put this issue to bed. I would like to say to the council members who have concerns, and particularly Councilmember Detrick, that I appreciate the perspective that you have. We respectfully disagree, but that's the great thing about this process and our community. And so we'll put this issue to bed, and hopefully we can come together as a city going forward now that we have this new system of election that I believe, and I know we disagree on this, I think will allow for more neighborhood power and representation on this council going forward. And so again, I appreciate the difference of opinion, but I'm glad that we're at the end, and hopefully going forward we can come together for our city. Thank you.
Andre, yeah, I appreciate you've been very positive through this whole process and respectful, and I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Monica Madrid. Following Monica is Lynn Wheat.
Hi, I would like to thank the council for voting for keeping the same districts, and I hope that the council can vote and do the right thing and vote for a by-district election. Thank you.
Ms. Lynn Wheat. Following Lynn Wheat is Randy Becker.
I want to thank you for the victory for the residents. I have been coming to council meetings for a very long time, and in the beginning it would be like 3-2 votes for most of the land use projects that were coming forward that were general plan amendments and rezones, and then it became 5-0. So I'm thinking if we go by district, we might go back to getting a no vote once in a while, because the people will be represented and not the developers. Thank you.
Mr. Randy Becker. Following Randy Becker is Amar Shergill.
Well, it's no secret, I've been pretty opposed to this. In my eyes, it's an overthrow of voters' wishes. 19 years ago, we voted this governance, but it's being overthrown by a loophole in a state law. Now, I don't know how many voters out of the 175,000 people are going to really care, but I can tell you this, you get one vote on CNU. That's it. 3 of them are going to be voting against you. Why? Because citizens wants a hospital. And they're going to get a hospital. Whether it's Sutter, Dignity, or CNU, or whomever. One vote. That's it. And there's no truth in what's been said about the change. None. Districts are going to stay the same size unless they're circumvented by the voters. Changed by the voters. It's not going to help women, people of color. We've had women and people of color up here. It's not going to change anything. Nothing. Some might say I'm a sore loser. No, I believe in the rule of the voter. 2 years ago, I came to you and said, we ought to make this change, or at least take it to the voters after the 2020 census. It's not that I'm not for change. I'm for it done correctly, for the right reasons. This is overturning a vote this is overturning what the citizens voted on. And yeah, 19 years ago, things have changed. Should we change again? Sure, why not? As long as it's voted on. This ain't the right way to do it. And for your comment, feeling like you have a gun held to your head, you're goddamn right. Make no mistake. This isn't being done fairly. Not fairly at all. But that's okay. I live in District 4. Mr. Hume's my representative. Or 2, sorry. Thank you. The bottom line is, not much is going to change in Old Town. But it will change in Laguna. It will change in the west. It will change in the north. Those green pastures are now homes. Get ready, they're going to change. And you'll have one vote. That's it.
Thank you, Mr. Becker. Our next speaker is Amr Shergill. Following Amr Shergill is Marine Craft.
Council, thank you for your anticipated positive outcome tonight, switching to by-district voting. And I feel like maybe some people are tuning into this conversation for the first time, so it's important to put things in a little bit of context. The issue of by-district likely would not have ever been raised if voters, if folks felt that they were actually being represented well by the current council. But voters are never represented well when outside corporate money floods the election system. Each of you takes thousands and thousands, up to hundreds of thousands of dollars from outside forces that just don't care about Elk Grove. So it's harder for people of color, the average person. It's harder for women, the average woman, to be elected when they can't raise that kind of money, when they don't make the choices you all have made in order to solicit those funds. So that's why this there was a genesis for this by-district campaign. And I know there's some inertia and there's hard feelings, and I think things will go better in the future, but I do want to address one thing. Whenever we talk about civil rights, the civil rights of voters, it's not as important to note what the majority thinks. The majority, throughout the history of the United States, has routinely voted for abhorrent, murderous laws which kill, oppress the weakest among us, right? So when we come to these issues, when we come to issues of voters, should people have civil rights? Should they be able to vote? Should they be able to elect people that agree with them? Should they be able to fundraise and be on an equal footing as others in the community? What we look at is what rights do they have? And what is a right for the community? And we actually ask the majority to protect the rights of the minority, even when they don't agree. And I think that's what's going to happen tonight. I think that, Councilmember Detrick, that even though you don't agree, you're going to vote to protect the rights of the minority, even though you think the majority feels a different way. And that's the American tradition that we ask for you to address in by-district voting tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Final speakers, Marine Craft.
Mr. Shergill said a lot of what I would have wanted to say as well, but I want to thank you for adopting the current map. I think that by district voting will prove that it will definitely even the playing field for people of color and women to run in the city of Elk Grove. And I really feel that if you work together as a team, because that's what the council is supposed to do. If you work together as a team, I think some of the concerns that Mr. Becker has can dissipate. I don't think that we have to have those issues. I think that if we are looking at the big picture of Elk Grove, if each district is looking at the big picture of Elk Grove, I think we will do the right thing even in by districts. So thank you.
Thank you. And seeing that there are no additional members signed up to speak, want to close public comment and declare public hearing closed. Council deliberation and direction. Go ahead, Vice Mayor.
Yeah, I'll lead off on this one. I went along on the last one for the current map because I think that obviously it did get vetted and it has served the city well, and a lot of thought went into its creation back when the directly elected mayor position came forward. However, I'm going to disappoint a lot of you in the audience right now because I've weighed this on my conscience since we've first started talking about it, and ultimately I have to vote that conscience, and I cannot vote for this. The reason being is because in reading the California Voting Rights Act, very well-written law. It was written airtight, I believe, with a couple of statutes in there that that make it so it's near indefensible, but I do believe it is defensible. And it says a couple of things. First, it does not make the distinction, as was called out, of a from district election system. It lumps that in as an at-large system. I think that's wrong, because I think the from district creates a geographic diversity so that the whole city is represented and that there cannot be a concentration of council members living within a certain part of the city, but that the whole city gets to vote for that, for every council member. It also says that there can be a recovery of legal fees made by the plaintiff, but not by the defendant. I think that's wrong. And the reason being is because I think this attorney, and probably others, have carved out a pretty profitable niche for themselves, wherein just for the benefit of bringing this to a city's attention, he is pretty much guaranteed a $30,000 payday for writing one letter. How many letters can he bang out in a day until he runs through the entire general law cities within the state of California? The only way for the defendant to recover fees is if that action, bringing suit, is considered to be fraudulent. So let me address the merits of the suit that's being brought. The California Voting Rights Act specifies that elections that happen prior to an action being filed are more probative than elections that happen afterward. So that means what's happened in the past has more bearing and is referred back to whether or not Elk Grove experiences racially polarized voting. The defendant, or excuse me, the plaintiff, the local plaintiff in this case, in the last election, was in the back of the room, won 4 precincts. He prevailed in 4 precincts in the city. None of those precincts were within District 2, the district that he was in the race to prevail, to win. And none of those 4 precincts in which he won were in the area of concentration that has been identified by our demographer as the protected class for whom he is seeking remedy. Now let me stop right there and just say this. Wherever, whenever opposition, disenfranchisement occurs, it is unfortunate, and I do believe that it does occur, and that there's a reason why this legislation was enacted. But I don't believe that it occurs in Elk Grove. And I believe that the districts that our current map represents, or that our current map has, is from a demographical standpoint, very similar to the overall composition of the city of Elk Grove. And so that each district is a microcosm then of the city at large. There's been a lot of talk about, well, we're just gonna have to redo this in the 2020 census. Then why don't we wait so we can do it one time, do it right? And or, as was mentioned, why don't we put it out to the voters and have them vote whether they want to change to this type of a system?
Always now.
Thank you. The public period time is closed. Mr. Sugarl, I appreciate your comment. Because, as was mentioned, you're disenfranchising other voters by taking away their right to vote for their representation. I will only be able to vote for 1 council member and the mayor, and there will be 3 people up here representing me that I will never have a vote for, never be able to vote for, excuse me. Furthermore, the mayor then will be the only local politician in the city of Elk Grove to have their name appear on a citywide ballot. That almost ensures that they are indefeatable in an election, because council members then will be unknown to voters within 3/4 of the city. And so those who were presumed to have the highest name recognition other than the mayor people will never have voted for them. Randy, you will know that you live in District 2 because you'll only be able to vote for somebody in District 2. And yet you, just like in the days of the county with Don Tolley and Toby Johnson before him, you will have other people voting on issues that affect you. And so to the folks who are beating up Darren over the C&U proposal, I gotta say, as was mentioned, if this goes to by district, you have 1 voice now who can be outvoted. So yes, you got the representation you wanted for your neighborhood, but it did you no good, rather than having a say in every seat that's up here. So as I said, I struggled with this, and I appreciate the arguments for it. I'm not saying that there isn't a time when it would be appropriate, particularly after we know the current demographics of the city. But you know, I just think that going to a by district will encourage bad governance. And Maureen, I appreciate your point about working together as a team, and I think we do work together as a team. But for an example of bad governance, if you look at a majority of the investments of the city of Elk Grove recently have occurred in District 4, the Aquatic Center, the Community Center, the proposal for Project Elevate. And what I've heard is that when you go to a by-district situation, now the funding for that organization, I have to take care of this person's district, and we have to take care of that person's district, and we have to spread it around, and these silos, these fiefdoms get created. And you look at what happened with this homeless situation, and Larry Carr had a homeless shelter shoved down his neck in his district. So I think this is the wrong action at the wrong time for the wrong reasons, and I doubt I'll get support, and if I do, I realize that that's potential exposure, but in good conscience, I just cannot vote for it.
Members? Councilman Suen? Councilman Detrick?
John, what is the legal ramifications on this?
Do you mean, I'm not sure what you mean. If the...
So if we move this forward tonight, there's no legal ramifications. If we don't move it on a by-district.
So if you pass a by-district measure tonight, this would be the first read of the ordinance. The second read of the ordinance would come back at your next council meeting on November 13th. The council passed a resolution of intent to transition to by-district on August 28th, giving you effectively a 90-day safe harbor provision. That 90 days expires on November 26th. If you took the second read of the ordinance on November 13th, I feel that you have satisfied the statute of facilitating the transition to a by-district election method consistent with the Voting Rights Act and within the 90-day period. That doesn't mean that you're completely insulated from a lawsuit if, for instance, there were gerrymandering. I don't see any evidence of gerrymandering under the current map, but you wouldn't be completely insulated from that. What you would be insulated from is a challenge under the current threat of litigation because you will have facilitated a transition to a by-district within 90 days. If the council chooses not to do that, then you're exposed to the possibility of litigation once that 90 days expires.
Okay, what is the, without council member Nguyen being here tonight, does that?
It does not affect the council's ability to take action. You would still need 3 votes with or without Councilmember Nguyen here. If you took action on the ordinance tonight, assuming there are 3 votes in favor of it, that would constitute a proper first read.
Okay, because it's just unfortunate. I mean, this is a very, very important decision. And for her not to be here tonight because of some family issues is very unfortunate. But I'll wait to hear from the rest of the council.
I got a question, Mr. Hobbs. In all the previous lawsuits across the state of California, has any city prevailed?
I'm not aware of a city prevailing in litigation. There have been a number of settlements. A settlement is just that. Both sides give and both sides take a little bit. There are some cases that are up on appeal currently, but I'm not aware of any where there's been a trial where the city has prevailed in such litigation.
Do you have an idea of what the cost of litigation that city had to pay out?
It varies by different cities. The fee awards that I've been seeing for cities that have lost have been ranging from around $2 to $4 or so million to the plaintiff's attorneys. The city would have to pay its own attorney's fees as well, which are probably going to be something along that range. Call it $1 to $2 million even on the low end. Now, that's if the city loses. If the city prevails, then the city would not be responsible for paying the plaintiff's attorney's fees, but as Vice Mayor Hume points out, the city would not be able to recover its attorney's fees from the plaintiff, even if it prevails, unless it's able to prove that the case is frivolous, which is a relatively high legal standard. It's very difficult to prove.
So Vice Mayor Hume raised some legitimate issues. What is your analysis on that?
Well, what I heard was Vice Mayor Hume has he accurately stated the law. He's right about that. I think I agree with just about everything that he said there. What I can't predict with any degree of certainty is what would happen if a lawsuit was filed. What I can do is look at the success or lack thereof that cities have had so far, and frankly, cities have not fared well in this type of litigation when sued, which is one of the reasons that We have been considering, staff has been considering and advising the council to consider going to a by-district method. It doesn't mean you wouldn't be successful in a lawsuit, but the way that the law is currently written, it's very difficult for cities to prevail. We don't have evidence, or a finding at least, of polarized voting, but there's risk in these litigations that staff is recommending that the city council consider moving towards a by-district process to mitigate that risk.
Of all the lawsuits that you've examined, what is the closest city that mirrors our population and our characteristic?
Well, I'm not sure there is one that mirrors our population. We are somewhat different in the sense that we have a from district approach and an elected mayor. I'm not aware of a city that has faced litigation such as that under the Voting Rights Act. However, as Vice Mayor Hume points out, under the Voting Rights Act, it doesn't really matter if it's a from district approach. That's considered an at-large election system, even though from our perspective, we do have districts under the Voting Rights Act is considered at-large. But every city has different qualities and different demographics, and they're all analyzed differently. In litigation like this, it often comes down to a battle of the experts. Each side has an expert explaining why there is or is not polarized voting. It doesn't have to be an intent to discriminate. In fact, no intent to discriminate has to even be shown. It's a very detailed, very complicated statistical analyses to determine whether or not there's polarized voting. And both sides will have their expensive experts determining whether or not there is or is not, and the court ultimately decides.
Just do the right thing.
Mr. Hobbs, please. Mr. Hobbs, what is your assessment then? What would be your recommendation?
Well, the staff's recommendation, which I support, is move towards a by-district approach in light of the risks of litigation. That doesn't necessarily mean that there's polarized voting in the city of Elk Grove, but given the risks of litigation, the costs the city could incur, I support the recommendation to move to a by-district approach.
Okay. So this is where I stand. I've been open and completely in support of this, and this is the reason why. During the campaign, I've been very vocal that in the event that I, as the mayor, was to lose this seat, we now would be facing the potential of having the majority of this council being appointees. This is not a representative democracy. A representative democracy is of the people, by the people. As a resident in Elk Grove, I don't vote for somebody in Sacramento. That's because we have a representative democracy. It's the opportunity to engage the community, to allow an opportunity for the PTA dad, the PTA mom, the soccer coach to actually rise up and run. This is real critical. This is critical because we want to engage the community. That's the reason why I've been in support of it. It defeats the argument. It defeats the argument of every time there's a vacancy on this council. I've heard this before, that it costs too much to run a special election. Hey, look, these seats aren't ours. It's the people's seats. And that's the reason why I've been so strongly in support of it. Now, it's unfortunate that we now have to pay $30,000 because of a letter that's sent to us. But I've been an advocate from the get-go. It makes logical sense. How much do we want to delay this? How much more millions of dollars do you want to pay? I'd rather use that money to build infrastructure for the community. That's my job. That's my obligation. It doesn't make any logical sense to continue this chaos any further. That's where I stand. I'm going to support it. Councilman?
Well, I think the law is clear. I think we're, what's been put before us, and we've gone through the process. I don't know that there's anything that I feel I can debate on. It's not, Mr. Mayor, I don't necessarily agree that everything was, the way this council was run before you and I got here. We got here at the same time. It operated that way since incorporation. So I don't know that it's fair to critique that. But again, we're here that we're facing the current law today, and so.
Look, the bottom line is you heard the recommendation from staff, from our city attorney. I'm not in a position where I'm going to spend millions of dollars defending a lawsuit that's going to fail. And I don't want it to hang on my head. And so, hey, if you want to do that, go right ahead, because it will become a campaign issue, I guarantee you that. And I don't think that as fiduciary stewards of the public's money, we don't want to hang that on the head. So, gentlemen, anything else?
Not arguing with you.
Yeah, just so everybody's clear, if you aren't already, in different words, but Councilman Hume and I pretty much said the same thing. You know, it's unfortunate because if you don't pay attention to history, history will repeat itself. And I think that's the problem we're going to have here. And, you know, you guys might not like the analogy of that this is being bullied. And I'm not specifically talking to you folks. I'm talking about the attorney who's behind this using an unintended consequence of the law. It is the law. I totally understand that. It's just unfortunate that I think everybody in this room has had circumstances they've probably been in their life where the law is not fair. And this is a prime example of that. You know, I'm not going to repeat everything that I've said before and what Councilman Hume said, but it's the facts. It's very unfortunate. You know, if you look, the people who are most adamant about keeping things the way they are the people that understand the history. And I think so it's very unfortunate. I think everybody knows I've probably been one of the most conservative financial members of this council. There's some projects that we've done that just recently got adopted that I was not very supportive of because of the financial obligation it created. Several $1 million a year. But, you know, I was outvoted and, you know, you move on. And I think, unfortunately, this is another one of those things that, even though I don't agree with it, it's what we are being forced to do.
So,
Anything else?
So I'll make the motion introduced by substitution of title only, an ordinance approving a district map and requiring members of the city council to be elected by district with an elected mayor, consistent with Elections Code Section 110 and Government Code Section 34886.
All right, I'll second it.
And if I could just jump in there, it's just to confirm that the Exhibit A, that is the district map being adopted, is that current district map, and that our sequence of elections will remain the same. We will be seeing districts 1 and 3 with this action coming up in 2020, and then we'll see districts 2 and 4 coming up in 2022, and the directly elected mayor for all those elections.
Yes.
That's part of this action. Thank you.
Okay, for the record, Mr. Vice Mayor, would you like a roll call vote so you can go on record? Okay, let's do a roll call vote.
For the roll call vote, I will know that Councilmember Wynn is absent. Councilmember Detrick.
I'll hold my nose and say yes.
Councilmember Suen.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Hume.
Nope.
Mayor Lee.
Aye. All right, motion passes. All right, so let's move to the next item.
With that, I'll take us to section 10, our regular agenda action items and recommendations, starting with item 10.1, which is receive information and provide direction to staff related to Compassion Elk Grove.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Council members. I'm Carrie Whitlock. I'm the Strategic Planning and Innovation Program Manager for the City of Elk Grove. I am here just to introduce Brenda Kress, who's going to, she's an Elk Grove citizen and a member of Compassion Elk Grove, and she's going to give a short presentation.
Good evening. Thank you, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and Council member and members for letting us present tonight about the Charter for Compassion Elk Grove. My name again is Carrie said, Brenda Kress, and I am an Elk Grove citizen. I'm a sole proprietor and businesswoman, member of Compassion Elk Grove. I'm a Compassion ambassador with Compassionate Capital Region representing Elk Grove. I'm a wife, mother, and a grandmother. So what is compassion? It is active caring for all people, especially those in need or distress. Compassion is good for everyone, giving it as well as receiving it. Strong scientific evidence demonstrates that in individuals, offering compassion builds physical and mental health. At the social level, it builds stronger community and more effective civic and business organizations. Someone recently stated to me that compassion is not self-evident. We need each other to express it, receive and give it, and measure the effects. Who are we in Compassion Elk Grove? We're a small, not-for-profit association. We've held community gatherings to listen to Elk Grove citizens over the past year. We've
Hang on
developed...
just a second. Sergeant Fuller, would you close that other door? Thanks.
We've developed charter language patterned after International Charter for Compassion, and we've learned from the Sacramento and Louisville, Kentucky process for developing charter language based on the needs of and the culture of our own city. We've produced suggested charter language specific to Elk Grove, building on our tradition of community compassion. It is a core value of who we are and that we wish to strengthen now and in the future. This suggested charter is concise, easy to read and remember, and it fits on one page. We would like the city to adopt a charter for compassion and to consider the proposed language. Each section of the proposed charter will appear on the screen, and I'll be making a few remarks about each. Human flourishing. Data and technology to monitor the well-being of a community's citizens are readily available, and many cities now do it as part of their routine review and planning functions. Such data makes it possible to identify important needs and to monitor progress towards meeting them. Elk Grove could easily accommodate key human well-being indicators within its present and planned data systems. In addition, my experience working with businesses and not-for-profits show that when we incorporate compassion as a core value, employees are happier at work, leaders become more mindful of actions and consequences that affect the volunteer or the workforce productivity, thus creating healthier organizations and more profitable businesses. Community building. Civic compassion binds community together and is a source of shared pride and enthusiasm. Just look at the huge community support for Project RIDE, the Elk Grove Food Bank, and the No Place for Hate campaign, for instance. As the city grows, we should also expand our compassionate tradition apace. It will help us hold and work better together as a community and help the community come together around it. Just publicly recognizing the value of compassion and those individuals and organizations that offer it can do much to spread it. For instance, the City Council could make a regular practice of publicly honoring individuals and organizations offering noteworthy compassion in our community and tending to the future. A compassionate community must be sustainable, meeting people's needs in ways that maintain the healthy environment required to sustain life on which all humanity depends. Today's children have the biggest lifetime stake in such sustainability. Experience suggests that it will be achieved only with their insistence and participation. Compassionately tending the future of Elk Grove requires empowering and including its young to participate in key discussions and decisions affecting the future. Through cooperation with the schools and other local partners, the city could systemize its existing activities with youth to better prepare, empower, and include the younger generation in building a more socially and environmentally sustainable Elk Grove. So in closing, compassion is a lens through which to view our community and a value to help orient our actions. We don't need a compassion program or a budget item. A compassionate Elk Grove will live embedded in all our programs and budget items simply as something we remember to be and to do. A charter for compassion is a way of reminding ourselves as a city and community who we wish to be and what we want to be about. It might hang in a frame on a wall, but lives in our heads and our hearts. So at this time, I'd like to invite Laura Hansen, co-founder of Compassionate Capital Region, to join me and make just a few comments about the International Charter for Compassion in Compassionate Sacramento.
Hi, good evening. If Elk Grove chooses to join the Compassionate Communities movement, it will be joining the hundreds of cities and communities around the world that have committed publicly to a higher standard of civic leadership and community well-being. Elk Grove will be one of the newest cities to join the growing number of cities and counties in the state of California and can be included in the upcoming Assembly Concurrent Resolution 108 for the state of California to be the first state in the country to be a state of compassion. Elk Grove would be the first city outside of Sacramento to affirm the charter within the 7 counties of the Compassionate Capital Region, making the collaboration, guidance, and resources of Compassionate Capital Region and Compassionate Sacramento available to the Elk Grove team. Thank you.
So thank you for your time. If you have some questions, I'd be happy to call up members of Compassion Elk Grove.
I'm curious, are you just looking for a resolution in support of this?
Mm-hmm. And that's the language that we put up on the screen, which I'm assuming would go to staff for review.
Are you specifically looking for any activities out in the community that would support this as well, or integrating something into regular council meetings? I think you mentioned a little bit of that.
So Mayor, I'll chime in here. I've met with a couple of folks ex parte of an official Compassion Elk Grove meeting, but one of the ideas that they had would be to come and make regular presentations at the beginning of council meetings recognizing compassion that's already occurring within the city, whether it's a nonprofit organization, Good Samaritan, something like that, that just sort of elevates people's awareness of compassion that's already going on.
Right.
In addition to then efforts to be better environmental stewards for future generations.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Another question. Yeah. Thank you for being here tonight, and this is definitely a worthy endeavor. I'm just wondering how you might work with, so our City of Elk Grove has a No Place for Hate program, and we try to do a lot of things as well to recognize our diverse and inclusive community. How would you work with them in your charge, or do you consider yourself something different?
No, I think for me, and if one of my members would like to step and speak to that, they can, but for me, it's just being a part of it. It's just, that is a compassion action in itself. So it wouldn't be looking to create something new, it would just be affirming it. What we're affirming is Elk Grove is already doing these amazingly compassionate things, and No Place for Hate is one of them. So.
Okay.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah, so in No Place for Hate would be one of those, under your umbrella, basically, of compassion.
Absolutely, the city's umbrella, right?
Yeah.
So if we're looking at things compassionately, that is absolutely already something being done.
I see. Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Any questions? Nope.
Thank you.
Right, want to open for public comment. Seeing that no members of the public signed up to speak, want to close public comment and council deliberation and direction. So here's my thought. I did have an opportunity to meet with Bill and Mackenzie Weezer as well, and I think some of the ideas that they've shared, I think would certainly benefit what we're doing here in Elk Grove already. I'd like to kick this back and give staff direction to have a conversation with the organization and to find the specifics aside from a resolution. And of course, that would include talking with the city clerk as to how we would incorporate that into regular city council meetings as well. Members?
Yeah, I'll just say, first of all, Bill, you should be a recruiter for Claremont Lincoln. I appreciate the email you sent singing their praises. But I am pursuing a master's program, and the curriculum of that university ties right into a lot of what is what they're bringing forward with this. So you promised me a cup of coffee if I sit down and collaborate with you guys, and so I'm looking forward to doing that. If there's not further council discussion, I'll wholeheartedly make the motion that we go ahead and adopt a charter for compassion, whether it's as written or if we want to have staff.
I'll second that.
Work with.
Can we have a motion, or can we just provide direction?
Need to come back with the resolution.
All right. So
if there's any direction from the council on any modifications to the 4 points that were brought up in the presentation, or if the direction is just to bring back that in a formal setting and agendize it in a manner that would allow the council to adopt it via resolution, we can do that.
Yeah.
Can we see those 4 points again real quick? Is that possible? Are they the 4 point? No, those are 5 points.
So it started here. Yeah.
So human flourishing, okay. Community building. And tending to the future, okay.
So we could put something together that kind of formalizes and presents it for council to adopt those via a resolution.
It's fine for me.
Yeah, and I'm fine with that, but I did want to push a little bit more. I would like staff to have a conversation to figure out how we integrate recognizing folks in the community on certain specifics that the organization sees, and I think that would be a very positive thing. Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
We have a consensus. All right. Okay. All right. Next item.
I'll take us to item 10.2, which is authorize the mayor to sign a letter opposing micro-enterprise home kitchen operations in Sacramento County.
Good evening again, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. This item is a recommendation of staff to, for the city to formally oppose Sacramento County's consideration of implementing licensing for micro-enterprise home kitchen operations. The background behind these this new style of food retail is Law AB 626, which created the concept of micro-enterprise home kitchen operations as a new retail food facility that would be operated by a resident from their private home. This law added regulations for the California Health and Safety Code, specifically in the California Retail Food Code. These, as we call them, MHKOs, may not be approved or permitted until the local jurisdiction with a local enforcement authority over food safety authorizes permits under that law. And here in Elk Grove, that would be the Sacramento County Environmental Management Department, who handles food and health inspectors and food safety oversight. So Sacramento County will be taking up this item in discussion with their staff to discuss licensing of these operations. The requirements that come with AB 626 are that food preparation is limited to 30 meals per day or no more than 60 meals a week, individual meals. So you would have the ability to turn the residents into a small-scale restaurant to serve on-site for dining the up to 30 meals a day, but no more than 60 a week. The food must be prepared and consumed on the same day. Customers may dine in, pick up, or have food delivered. The operations may not have more than one full-time equivalent food employee, and that does not include a family member or household member in the home. The operations may not exceed $50,000 in verifiable gross annual sales, and it requires food manager certification, which is a standard food safety certification in the restaurant industry now, and food handler cards for the employees that would be working in the home kitchen operation. There are some local requirements or restrictions that are placed on cities and counties that would undertake this effort. We're not required to require any business licenses of these types of businesses. We're not able to zone them or apply zoning regulations to prohibit MHKOs. And residences cannot be zoned or rezoned, and we have to allow them in all residential zones should the county take up permitting of this type of retail. We are not able to require any parking added to the property or parking on site in relation to the business. There are no modified building or fire code standards that kick in, which is something you typically see in a commercial food operation. The city itself will have no enforcement authority over this type of business, so none of the standards that we have in our zoning code currently related to home occupation businesses are we able to apply to these or enforce them. And there's no additional sanitation requirements that kick in with these operations. The Board of Supervisors is going to be taking this up to either approve EMD to begin licensing these operations or to reject that licensing, in which case then they would not be allowed anywhere in Sacramento County. It's important to point out, and staff's largest concern, I think, with this effort is that AB 6 has added a section to the Health and Safety Code that says that these types of businesses, if licensed by the food regulator, would be valid in any city within the county, regardless of whether that city has separately enacted an ordinance or resolution to authorize or prohibit the permitting. In other words, we're completely hands-off in this situation should the county allow these to be permitted and they begin to operate in our neighborhoods.
Shane?
Yes, sir.
This seems pretty heavy-handed to the local jurisdiction. Is there more to the story behind this?
I would just say that it was written in a way that put the onus of deciding to do this and operate this squarely on the food regulation angle of allowing this. And the bill as it was passed and signed did not, was not crafted to seek the ability or to provide the ability for the locals to be able to provide any further regulation to it. I think maybe the fear was that the state would allow this to occur and then cities and counties across the state would stand by, would zone them out, allowing for the effect of the law to be minimal. We weren't involved heavily in the drafting of the legislation or the discussions at those stages, so I don't know for certain what the thoughts were there, except to see what was written in the final text of the law as we got it.
John, do you know anything back from the League of Cities with all the other attorneys that would have reviewed this as well as it was taking place?
I don't have any information on that. The law is, as you put it, is fairly heavy-handed, that the county kind of controls this, but it was pushed through the legislature. I'm not sure how the league weighed in on this, if at all.
Okay.
The language in AB 626, and it's been codified into the Health and Safety Code, conflicts with several sections of our municipal code. We regulate home occupation businesses in an effort to be able to well balance people being able to operate small businesses and to engage in business activity and do it in a way that it does not negatively impact their neighbors or the residential character of our neighborhoods. We feel like we've had a pretty good balance with that so far. Specifically, the up to 30 diners a day that would be allowed under this licensing conflicts with a limit we have of no more than 8 clients or customers that would be able to visit a home occupation business in a certain day in our zoning code. We also require in our zoning code that parking be provided so that the operation of the business does not impact neighbors or consume available parking in the residential areas. AB 626 restrictions exceed these standards, as we've covered, and staff believes would negatively impact the quality of life and the residential character of our neighborhoods. AB 626 also prohibits the imposition of the requirement for like a safety fire extinguishing hood should you be doing commercial cooking or any of the other fire or building codes that might kick in when you have 30 diners in a particular space. The homes are allowed to just remain a home for the purposes of this ordinance. Lastly, because of these issues we've laid out, the staff is not opposed to the concept or the operation of small business. We currently have what we call a cottage food operation allowance that was a state legislative effort that allowed for the commercial cooking in residences that could be then sold off-site or transported off-site for sale, and our zoning code does allow for that in compliance with state law, and we have had little to no issues with those types of businesses. It's really the on-site dining and the lack of ability that we would have to address negative impacts that would occur that causes us to ask you to consider authorizing the mayor to sign a letter to Supervisor Kennedy, the chair of the Board of Supervisors, recommending that Sacramento County not implement this at this time, and perhaps give everyone at the local level a chance to work with the legislature to find a better path to allow for these types of businesses to operate in our cities. With that, we're available for any questions.
Any questions? No questions? All right, thank you.
Councilmember Detrick, just to try to address our question, I looked up the bill analyses. I don't see, looking quickly, that the league weighed in on this, at least not formally as in opposition.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Want to open public comment? Seeing no members of the public sign up to speak, want to close public comment? Council deliberation and direction.
I just don't see a situation where this makes sense. So I'm fully in favor of staff's recommendation.
I agree.
Second.
Yeah, I just, want to voice that I can see what the legislature are trying to do to empower the stay-at-home parent. But, it's hard for me to fathom opening your neighborhood for, hundreds of people driving in to have dinner. That just doesn't make sense. I checked with Shane earlier. I think currently you can have meals delivered from a home, or you can have folks pick up meal. But opening your home for a restaurant, it really doesn't make any sense. So, all right, you have what you need? Okay, that's it. So let's adjourn this meeting at 9:05. Thank you.